Hello everyone. Welcome back to Art in Real Time. Figure out how this apron is supposed to go on. I forgot. I think it goes like this. Yes. There we go. Oh, it's way more comfortable than the neck hangers. There's a cross on my back. How's everybody doing? So today, as the thumbnail with my goofy face going, ooh, doing the algorithm-friendly face, we're gonna make a United States post office inspired mailbox. The reason being, it's a cool miniature prop and it teaches a lot of skills. So I thought I always tried to do something that is, I don't have any language skills today, that shows you the most. It's got the most value for your time. I try to do that. It also keeps my interest and keeps me zoned in. So this was what you saw in the thumbnail. This is the first USPS style mailbox drop box I ever made with styrene and cardstock. So this, it's styrene on the sides and cardstock over the top, mixed with other styrene, and then the rivets are done with nails. But this is a very old one. I did, like, I think over maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I dropped it and it broke. You see that? The leg broke. I don't know where it went. It like flew across the shop a long time ago. So in the thumbnail, I'm holding it like this to like, and you know, and trying to hide the broken leg. Because I was just like, I just need a good thumbnail that gets the attention of everybody and lets them know what I'm doing. So I just hid the leg. But we're gonna make one of these today, this scale, that's got a little bit of a different style to it, the same basic shape. And I'm gonna show you guys a few things. There's a link below in the description if you want to visit my Etsy store, because I made some templates for you guys if you want to go that route. I am gonna demonstrate a fully scratch built one with just using like measurements off my template. But if you'd rather have some guidance as far as the dimensions and size to keep it accurate to 1/12 scale, there's 2 things available in my shop. So this is the first one. This is a template that I made. So I made myself a model and I drew a CAD template. And this is the side view, the front rolled up all the way around the back. So there's these things that tells you, and it tells you what to remove, where to glue stuff. It's got reference lines for lining stuff. It's just a guide, right? And there's a lot of ways you could use this, and we'll use this together. I'm gonna do the scratch built one first, or get that started, and then I'll go over different ways you can use this template. And if you have like a Cricut cutter, you could print this out on like heavy cardstock and then cut it out on your Cricut, right? Or you could print it out like this on paper, and you could trim it out, or you could trace it, or just use it as a measuring reference, whatever you want. This is in my Etsy store. You can download the digital file, print as many as you want. And there's labels, high quality graphic labels on here. And I've modified these so that I don't have any trademark infringement on the US government. So these are heavily modified, but they still resemble the Postal Service logo so that it sells as a miniature. I got these collection times here. I filled in with a bunch of fun Easter eggs too. I'll let you guys look out for what those are. But I modeled this off of the one of the mailboxes that I live closest to, and I measured it, and I spent a lot of time making this so it's accurate for you. If you wanted to make this in 1/6 scale, you could take this and you could double it. So you could print this out double size. You could take this and just double all the measurements and follow the scratch build method. I also have a 3D model that I'm working on. It's just about done. I'm having a problem making it watertight because I went into like hyper detail, and it's very accurate, but I missed something somewhere, so I have to comb over it. So that's coming later. Check back into the store if you're interested in a 3D printable model as well. It's not there yet though. And the other template you can order, that's type 1. This is for those of you who are interested in this. The other one is the same template with no labels and high quality pre-printed labels in a glossy format that there's enough for you to make 2 complete mailboxes. So you can get the template and cut out 2 sets of mailboxes, glue them together, and you can print these on if you want to make 2. Now, I just ask, because I spent my time making these things, that if you want these, the printable one, or you want to order a pre-printed one from me, right? You can order this, I'll ship it to you. That you don't sell these as they are. Please do not recopy these and sell them. That was my time. But if you make a mailbox from these, sell as many as you want. Make as many as you want using these labels. Sell as many as you want. That's fine. You put in that effort and time. But if you recopy these and sell these as they are, I consider that theft of my time. So just keep that in mind. Most artists would feel that way too. So these are available to you. We will use these later in the stream. I promise we'll do these, and I'll show you how to utilize these. Those of you who came here from my Etsy store because of the description, and 2 of you already bought these. I listed these yesterday and 2 already sold. Hang on there. I'll show you all the techniques you need to use this. But I have to ask an important question before we start. What is the best cereal? What's the best cereal? Because I have plenty of cereal box cardboard and cereal box style cardboard, which is one of the main materials we're going to use today. You could do this with any type of thin cardboard, heavy cardstock, like 65 pounds, kind of light, but if you can get the 110-pound stuff, or even comic book back air boards for comic books and bagging and boarding comics, that cardstock, which is basically cardboard, is awesome for making miniatures with. And also you could use styrene, thin sheet styrene. All of these work for this method. You just have to the materials behave a little bit differently as far as rolling them or creasing them and cutting them. So just be mindful. We're going to start off with cereal box cardboard. And I had a lot of smaller pieces of, and let me show you what I mean. So I had this is some crackers I had sitting around, and I unfolded it. And this is cereal box cardboard. It's cracker box cardboard, but it's literally the same stuff. But this stuff is rigid, flexible enough, easy to glue, easy to paint. It's great for making miniatures or miniature details with. It's wonderful. But I wanted a bigger sheet because I just wanted a bigger sheet. And I went down the cereal box aisle, having not gone down the cereal aisle, I think since I was single and living on my own, like, how long ago was that? I don't know. 15, 17 years, something like that. Because I don't eat cereal anymore because it makes me either sugar crash or it hurts my teeth. It's usually pretty awful for you. But I had a little bit of an addiction to it when I moved out on my own. I would buy it when I could afford it and like eat the whole box in 2 days, which is funny. Credit to Mom, Oilers Workshop. I know who you're watching the stream, Mom. Love you, Mom. But she would never buy me any of the sugary cereals I wanted growing up, so credit to her. But, you know, when Honey Bunches of Oats came out, she was like, we can buy that because it's healthy. But obviously it wasn't healthy, but it looked healthy, so she would get it. But we both loved it because it was like sweet and delicious, and we would finish it really fast. But the stuff I always really wanted, she'd never give me. So what is the best cereal? What is your favorite cereal? I guess is really what I'm asking. Because the stuff I used to buy, I either used to buy Reese's Puffs or Pops. I love these Pops. I wouldn't eat them now because they'd probably make me sick after like 2 bites. But I love these. I never got these growing up. I think my mom did give in and buy them for me one time, but that was it. So I decided to buy Pops because it was a really big box. And I like the graphics, even though we're going to cut them up. It's my weird ADD way of deciding how to buy a box to cut up. But that's what I did. So what is the best cereal? What do you think? Whether you're watching now or in the future times, I'd be curious. Everybody welcome, by the way, who's here. Benno Crafts is watching and following from Egypt. Ah, shukran. Shukran. Thank you for being here. As soon as you said that, all the Arabic I remembered in my brain is now gone. So, except for shukran, which means thank you. So, thank you for being here. Shukran, shukran. Cool. I've been to Egypt. Egypt is amazing. Eric Bradshaw's here. Joe Toys is here. Nightwolf's here. What's up? Hi, everybody. Eric says Cocoa Pebbles are the best. Cool. Cocoa Pebbles are good. They're like, it's Something about the tiny little pieces didn't feel right in my mouth. Like Rice Krispies I used to like and then I didn't like. But these big old chunks, I don't know why. I like these a lot. So we're gonna open this up. I'm gonna put the cereal aside. And this is just to demonstrate anything around your house that's made of this you can use to make miniatures with. So let me just cut this open here and we'll get started since I've been talking for 10 minutes straight. Flip the camera around. There's my 3-legged mailbox. And I'm going to use a knife to cut this open. So I don't want to rip the cardboard. Well, at least to help it. I don't want to rip the cardboard. Preserve as much as possible. Oh, look at those empty calories. Delicious. Thanks, Benno. All right. And again, I'm just using my knife so that I don't tear open big chunks of cardboard, just to preserve as much as possible. Incidentally, this is what I do when I make miniature boxes. Is I'll take the box I want to replicate and open it up like this and make a template that way. But look at that. Look at all this real estate we've got now. You open a box of cereal and like, look how many mailboxes fit on here. You got... This is like 2 mailboxes on this side, 2 mailboxes on this side with room to spare. So one cereal box probably yields you like 2 or 3, mailboxes. Or one dumpster if you're lucky. So I'm also going to just trim this up so I have flat pieces. So I'm going to use my big old 24-inch ruler. And just to show you too some of the other cardboards you can use. These are thin cardboards that I saved. Excuse me. These are from packaging. So this has got a corrugated interior to it. It's fairly thin. This is slightly thicker, right? And then you can get to the really large box cardboard, which is thicker than this. But these are all useful for different purposes. You just got to get used to how to use them. I might use some of this for my sides. And this is where a little bit of just personal preference, what you have lying around, just learn to work with. That's what I did. I just figured it out with what I had lying around. All right, and this is more, this, by the way, if you're going to trim something down, is more about getting one long straight line, not necessarily lining it up perfectly to the folds that are already there. You're never going to be able to get it perfect, but if you could just make sure you get one, you never move your ruler and you cut continuously, you'll have a nice straight line to measure everything else off of. By the way, I hope everyone's having a nice weekend if you're watching on the weekend. So I will save these little scraps in like a little cardboard box, cardboard box, just for future use. Let me know if everything looks good and sounds good too. I'm using a new device to stream on, and I just want to make sure it looks good and sounds good. This camera on this new device is operating a little bit more dynamically than my last one, so it's probably changing depth of field and focus a lot more than my old one, which is good. It's more like a regular film camera, which I like. I like the production look of that. So hopefully it's focusing on the right things though. These are good because you might just need a little piece. You don't want to cut a tiny piece out of a big piece, so that you can have the big real estate for other things later. So now I know I have a flat side here. I'm going to line this up on my mat. And I'm going to use the lines on the mat to cut these vertical sections. So now I know I have a right angle here. I'm just actually going to mark that too so I don't lose that. I'm just going to mark a right angle here. So I know I can depend that these are perpendicular. Those other two cuts may not be, just to help me keep lines straight if I need to. Just good practice when you're breaking materials down. Same thing here. Gonna line this up and line up on the mat lines. Cut off of those with my big old metal ruler. All right, now I've got this. I've got these edges on here, right where the fold was. So I'll just keep this as spare. I'll cut those off when I need to. And then I should have a right angle right here. A right angle is denoted by drawing a right angle facing the other way, usually in drafting. That's how you do it. Geometry class, I'm sure you remember. You remember. So now I've got two big old sheets of material plus spare. The stream, by the way, is brought to you by Unsweet Iced Tea. All right. So for the scratch build, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my template and I'm just going to use this as a reference for me for now. Normally I would draw my sketch and I would figure out the dimensions by doing all the scaling I've gone over many times in other videos. I've already done that here with this template, right? That's available in my Etsy store if you want one, the printable or the printed. But I've done all the work here in this template, so I'm just going to go ahead and use what I have. But normally I would sketch it. I would figure out what the real life size dimensions are, divide it all by 12, and figure out what my widths and stuff. So to do this though, right, I could cut each side out with all the detail in it, right? The first time I could cut this length out, I could cut all the stuff out, and you can do that and then slowly assemble it. I'm going to do it a different way, and I'll kind of explain why when I do it, because it'll probably make more sense when you see what I'm talking about. But what I'm just going to do now is I'm going to use the width of the front, right? And the width of the side, which I believe is 22 inches in real life. Where is my small ruler? Here it is. So I believe it's 22 inches in real life, which comes to just like 1 7/8 inches. So yeah, just under 1 7/8 inches is my measurement here on the front. And this should be about the same. Yep, and just under 1 7/8 inches. So, excuse me. So I'm going to create one long piece of material and another long piece of material that I can cut these respective pieces out of that are 1 7/8 inches. Because it'll be slightly more efficient than cutting every piece out. But you might be the person that needs to do the piece method. I am that way with other things. Like you can turn it into a model kit or you can turn it into a reference. I'm kind of going the reference route just because of the way my brain works, but I'm just trying to make this as accessible to all of the people that watch the channel as I possibly can. Because I know there's people out there that we got all kinds here, and I appreciate you guys for being here. But I got folks who ask me to talk more in my videos, and I got people literally telling me to shut up in my comments because I talk too much. And then I got people who wish I could do things like this, make templates and 3D printable models. And then I got people who are like, I prefer watching you scratch build. So I'm just trying to cover everybody's needs so that they can all get the most out of this channel. That's my nature as a people pleaser. It's a hard life, but I'm trying to make it work. All right, so there is my first strip of cereal box cardboard at 1 7/8 inches. Since this is cut correctly, I'm just going to use it as a reference for my next cut instead of measuring the next cut. Since I know this is the right width, and I want to make at least two strips. Come on, okay. I'm going to do a pencil mark just in case I lose my place. And then I'm going to see if I can do this with a camera in front of me. There we go. Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks for all the likes. I know right now it is currently the Memorial Day holiday weekend Sunday in the current times. And so I know many people are just enjoying their day off, but I hope this provides some enjoyment for everybody who watches it this weekend and whoever's watching in the future times. And if you're watching in the future times, comment below what is the best cereal or what is your favorite cereal. Inquiring minds need to know. Please. Let the arguments begin. No, I'm kidding. Or am I? Okay. Oop. I'm just using scissors to trim this off because if I try to drag my blade through that, I might tear it. Okay, so that's fun. So here's my 2 strips. Again, back to my reference here. This is the width of that. This is the width of that. Excuse me. So I'm going to cut my sides. Move this back over here. I'm going to cut my sides first, and I'm just going to use my pencil and mark it. I'm going to kind of line this up here on my template and mark it. If I didn't have my template, I would just measure it, right? I would do my math. The math would be, whatever that is, 4 and something. 4 and 1, 2, 3/16. So I would just measure up here on my piece. 4 and, oops, where am I at? There we go. 4 and 3/16. So I would mark that, and I would do it that way. So either way works. Whatever your mind prefers, whatever your heart tells you, do that. Unless it's murder, don't do that. If your heart tells you that, go see a psychiatrist. Okay, so now I'm just going to do this. I'm also going to mark the center point on that line so I can do some geometry. And that's going to be 15/16. There's my center point. That is because I need to draw the curve on here. I'm not using my template for the curve, right? I'm just using it as a dimensional reference. Again, so if I was scratch building, I wouldn't have this. I would have a drawing. So in the spirit of that, let me grab my my compass, which is over here somewhere. There you go, compass. There it is. All right. Welcome to everybody who's here in the chat. Robert Jossip, is it possible to do it with sheet metal? Yes, but all the joinery and cutting would be completely different. Yeah, you could do it with sheet metal. I would try it with sheet aluminum, like super thin sheet aluminum, or even metal from cans. It's going to be janky. You might probably cut your fingers on the metal edges, but you could do that with scissors. But the glue up's going to be hard unless you have experience bending and folding and creating fold templates. You could do that. I'm probably not going to demonstrate that here on this channel anytime soon because that's kind of advanced and I don't really do metal working per se on this channel. I could, but it would probably just be more for entertainment purposes because I'm trying to teach people how to do it with easy, cheap, accessible materials. The metalworking is a little bit more advanced, which I can get to that stuff, but probably not right now. So, but thank you for asking. So I'm just going to put my compass on the center point and figure out where my outer edge is there, and then I'm going to mark the quadrant of my circle here, just so I know where the center point of this circle would have been here. Again, I'd be going off a drawing with measurements. And I'm going to measure the center point again, which is 15/16. And that's just to find the center of this circle, which would be right there. I'm finding it here with raw dimensions, right? So if I was working off a sketch with math, this is how I would do this. So there is, there we go. So there's my arc. See that? That should match this one, right? You can use any compass. You don't have to have a fancy, like nice compass like this. You can use just off the shelf school compass as long as it can draw on a sharp point and it's stiff. You're good to go. Okay, so there's that one. I'm going to draw the other one on the opposing side. So the way I do that is mark the other side, mark the center point on this side, and then I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to do mirror images here. So wasn't exactly in the right place. There we go. There we go. There's my mirror images. And I know, again, my height is, what is it, 4 3/16? A little over 4, or actually it's about 4 1/8. So I'm going to measure 4 1/8 again here and mark the bottom of this side. And again, I think I have time on the stream to do both because this is a pretty small object, but it goes over a lot of different techniques. So I think we can do both. We'll do the template method here after the scratch build method. I prefer scratch building just because my brain thinks in lines and surfaces. And if I'm doing something that's with thin materials, I can work pretty quick. If I'm not explaining it, I can work super fast. Like I probably have it all cut out and started gluing by now. But I gotta slow my roll here. Okay, so this is actually about the height of that. So I can use this to make another mailbox. Scratch. Now, here's where you could, if you're using thin enough material, you could use scissors or you could use a knife. I'm gonna probably use scissors. Let me double check. Let me just see how good of a, let me just draw a little curve on this. It's the same radius. See how consistent I can cut it out. This is just a test. That's pretty good. You can also sand cardboard too with fine sandpaper. So if it's a little rough, I could sand it. I'm going to go ahead and cut it with scissors. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut this in half. Okay. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and cut this off. And I am cutting probably on the middle of the line. This does matter when you're doing small measurements like this. If you cut inside the line, outside the line, the middle of the line, my dimensions are drawn to the center point of the pencil line on my compass. So this is my pencil. So my dimensions are on the center point. So I want to cut kind of through the center. If I have to stagger to one side of the line, maybe stagger to the outside. And if I need to trim it down, I can trim it down. I can't add to it once I cut it, but I can make it smaller. So center, if you can be accurate. Outside, if you're worried about accuracy, and you can always sand it down. So like I already see a little wobble I did there. I think I have enough material to cut with the scissors. Yeah, we're good. Okay. You do another one here. And this size, by the way, is hyper real scale accurate to 1/12 scale. If you want to make yours a little bit bigger because you think it would look better with a 6.5, 7-inch tall superhero figure, then do that. If you're looking for dollhouse sort of scales, you might want to shrink it or shrink it to 1/18, which would basically making it about 66% of the size that it is. So if you bought one of these printable templates, went to go print, and you said make 66%, like if you went to the side resizing and said 66%, that would be 1/18 scale, roughly. It'd be a little off, but it would be close enough. And again, if you wanted to go to 6 scale, you double this, and you could plot it out on a big piece of poster paper. Okay, so these should be basically identical, and they are. I'm going to get my sandpaper just to show you that. This is 120 grit, right? This is 120 grit sandpaper, and you can literally just, if you're light about it, you can knock down the material. If you get rough with it, it'll tear it out, but you can just do some light sanding to smooth it. Yeah, there we go. That's nice and smooth now. So many miniatures you've seen in older films from even the 90s and before. Miniatures were made out of styrene, cardboard, cardstock. You know, some had sheet metal, but most of them were made out of thin, light materials like this. So I used to think that there was some magical material out there, and there was. It's called styrene. But I didn't know what styrene was, so I started messing with this stuff, and I was able to do a lot when I was a kid. I didn't have the technical know-how or the available space and money to buy better material or better adhesives and tools, but you can get a lot done with just cardboard. And especially on film, like if you're looking at it to the naked eye, when you start gluing things together, you might notice some inconsistencies because of the nature of that it's cardboard. But once you put it in front of camera and you hold it a couple feet away or a foot away or a couple feet away from the camera, you can't notice those things and it starts to look real. Like if you make a spaceship out of cardboard, you'd be surprised how good it looks on film. It's amazing. So it's amazing. So now what I'm going to do, all right, let me see who's here too from the other. What's up, Matt Logic? Bart, you didn't miss anything. Okay, well, we'll get to advanced stuff. I have some tutorials coming up in video form, pre-recorded that will be coming this year, and hopefully there'll be some stuff that will feel more advanced in those. So, what was I doing? I was having attention deficit disorder. Oh, yes, okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to retrace this, believe it or not, but I'm going to make it smaller. Okay. So I'm just going to use this is my reference. And then I want to retrace this, but about the thickness of this material, smaller, right? So very tiny. That's about a 1/16 of an inch. Well, less than that. It's about a 32nd of an inch thickness. So I can go a little under that because there's going to be glue in there, right? And we can always sand the thing down if we want, as you just saw me do. So I'm going to make 2 more of these, but about a 32nd to 1/16 of an inch smaller all the way around. And it will make sense why in a moment. So I'm probably just going to... No, that's too risky. I'm going to draw the lines in where I want, and it's going to be very, very subtle. Just show you what I'm doing here. Okay, so I've got one line in here. That's actually pretty thick too. That's way thicker than the material. So actually, let me redraw this line. It's a little bit too off. I want them to be consistent. Okay. So there's a space I've created here. I'm just going to follow this around up here. Just going to kind of sketch it in up here. And then what I'm going to do, because I want this gap to be a little smaller, I'm going to cut on the outside of the line instead of on the line for this one. It'll make sense when I show you why I'm doing this. So, and I will for the straight part, I'm going to cut it with a straight edge. And then for the rounded part, I'm going to cut it with my scissors. Okay, so, all right, very thin piece of material. Save that too. You could add that as some kind of detail later. Okay. That's all right. So this should be just a little bit thinner than this. Yep. There we go. Pretty darn close. There we go. So it's a little bit thinner. I'm going to do the same up here. And this is where you really want to be good with this cut, because it's going to be an alignment piece. I can see there's like a corner there. I don't want that. Okay, so let's check it against the piece here. Okay, and I'm just going to visually check and see how aligned or not aligned it is. So that one's a little bit off up here. Let me just hold it on this one. I want it to be consistent. Let's make sure, because sometimes these could be a little bit off. Okay, so it is a little bit tight up here. So up here, it's pretty close to the edge. This is why I'm checking. I need to cut a little bit more off here. I need to straighten that out a little bit. Cut a little bit more off here. I'm just marking this so that I know. Should be good. Let's check that. All right, that's pretty good. It's not absolutely flawless, but it's pretty good, right? You can see I've got a consistent edge all the way around. This is where, too, you could also use an alternate material. This inner piece that we're making, this is going to be on the inside, is actually more beneficial if it's a thicker material because it's going to be something we're going to abut the outside wrap to so that it has something to push against, right, when we wrap the front and back onto it. So I'm just going to cut another one of these using this as a reference. So I'm going to use that strip that I cut. Actually, you know what? This is a good opportunity to use those scraps because I don't need it to be this width. I need it to be smaller. So I'm going to use one of these scrap pieces that I saved. Okay, and then we're going to trace it out. I'm going to put a little eye on this so I know it goes inside. All right, there's my inner. And then just going to trim this out really quick. And this one I want to do on the line. Just going to cut this out like that. Scraps. And this one on the line again. Okay. And then on the line. I walk the line. This is a Johnny Cash tutorial. No, just kidding. Obviously. Inner monologue coming out. Excuse me. I had a cold for a few days and I'm over it. But you know, you get that dumb residual cough. Okay, so these are our inner wells for strengthening purposes. And now I'm going to, so at this point, I could use my outside piece and I could cut this negative space out here for the legs, right? And I might do that here. I could cut this out now, or I could glue this on here and then cut them both out. So I have double thick legs, right? Or not, right? It kind of just depends on what, either way it works. Either way, they're going to have to deal with thicknesses of materials getting in the way and having to compensate. You'll see what I mean when we get there. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, I think I'll go ahead and cut the leg out. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out and just to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to use my little template here and I'm going to mark on here where those legs go. And then I'm going to mark the top. Mark the top. Again, you could cut that out and do it, which we'll do later. I'm just not doing. I'd have measurements, and these are just to pretend I took measurements, because that's what I would have done if I had started without a reference. There's that. Okay, so there is our legs, but there's an inner arc here, right? This is an outer arc, so I can cut around it with scissors. Obviously, trying to cut that out with scissors isn't going to work, so we're going to have to pivot to using our hobby knife. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the radius of this circle or the radius of this arc, which with this again, you could just eyeball this as long as they're all consistent. You know what? My pencil doesn't come out far enough for me to do that. So never mind. Too small of an arc. Here, we'll do it this way. We will use the end of our hobby knife as a curve reference. Bam. Now, as long as I use this reference on all the sides, I will have consistent dimension. Which looks like it's pretty much the dimension I had, so. Good for me. All right, so now I'm going to use the hobby knife, and we're going to very carefully do this. Do not cut yourself. If you are a child, do this with your parents' supervision or have them do it. I am not responsible for any fingers that get sliced or poked. All right, and we're probably going to do this in 2 passes. I'm going to do this. I'm going to score this. Howdy, everybody. And there we go. So that's initial score pass. You see that it doesn't, you can see the lines, but it doesn't cut through all the way, right? And now I'm going to be a little slower, a little bit stronger. You can do this with styrene too. Styrene, though, you're going to have to do 2 or 3 passes. Or if you do one good pass, you can break it out. But with these small little legs off of here, I would be careful about that. With styrene, you might just crack the leg off too. So practice, do a practice piece. I like styrene. There we go. Styrene is my friend. Cereal is my friend. All right, look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that? Camera's kind of doing some weird things. Okay. Scraps. Save that for something else. All right, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to trace that. Because I'm a genius. No, because it's easier. Trace that. And now I'm going to cut on the outside of that line. I have no idea what that is, Robert Joseph. Cut on the outside of your line to keep it lined with the other line. That's the song about the line cutting. Okay. All right. Again, you can see that there's some score lines coming through. We're just going to do it again. Just be careful. You don't cut the leg off. Like coming here, trying to turn, you might go, ah, and then you have to cut a whole new piece. Don't do that. And notice how I'm cutting away from my hand. So I do not slice myself. I do not want to turn my fingers into salad topping. Sliced vegetables. Oops, see, look at that. See, look at that. It's about to break, bend. I thought it was cut enough. It's not. Going to come back. It's okay. When I glue that together, it'll get reinforced. So you got a little bend in there. Oops. Oops-a-daisy. That's okay. That happens. But as long as I don't cut that off or make it worse, when I glue things in place, it'll get strong enough to be okay. Dude, happy little mailbox sides. Now, sorry, I forgot about these. So now I have this, right? I could cut this the same and reinforce it. My goodness, the camera is constantly going out of focus. I could cut this the same, or what I could do is create another edge on the bottom for the bottom piece to glue up against, which is what I'm going to do. So what that requires me doing is basically, I'm going to scribe. Somebody just said the word scribe, so now it's in my head. Freudian influence. I'm just going to mark here where that is, and I'm going to measure it, which it is exactly 1 inch. That's correct, Wendy. We all measure inches. All right, so this is 1 inch plus the material thickness, right? So 1 inch up is exactly to this point right here, from here to here. I want it to be the thickness of the material higher so I can glue a bottom onto it. Or I could even go higher if I want the bottom to be like hidden up in there, which actually would be more accurate. So maybe I should do that. Let me go like 1 1/8 inches. That would be more accurate to a real mailbox. We're going for accuracy. Boom. Oh, I need to cut that, not draw that. What am I doing? What am I doing? There we go. Okay. Scraps. So now, if I put this here, that should sit, yeah, it's just a little bit higher, right? This is a little bit, this space down here is a little bit bigger than this space on the side. Actually, I think I want to take it a little higher too. Can you take me? Better throat. Doesn't sound good. Okay. Whew, having an ADD moment, and I haven't even had any caffeine. Okay, what does that look like? Yeah, that's a little better. So when this is all assembled and I put the bottom plate on and butt it up against this, it'll be raised up behind this. It'll have a little lip, and then it will look good. Oh, Maddie, thank you. I'm glad you missed me. I missed you too. Sometimes, though, you just got to do what you got to do. We're back. Okay. Just using this again as my reference. Okay. Guess what? We get to glue something finally. So you can use white glue. My goodness. You can use hot glue if you want. Hot glue works pretty good on cardboard. I usually hate it for foam and a lot of other stuff because it's very weak. And with expansion and contraction of temperature, hot glue will release over time and get weaker. It just will because it's not actually glue. It's melted goo. And so it responds to heat. That's why it's hot glue. So it'll respond to subtle temperature changes and it will slowly contract. But with cardboard, there's a lot of fibers in this, and it'll grip a lot better. So I give you permission to use hot glue. Just use little bits of it. Don't use huge globs of it. I'm going to do both, like my favorite sort of glue up welding glue method, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use super glue. Actually, I'm going to use super glue. For this, I'm going to use super glue. You could use hot glue again. I'm going to use hot glue on something else. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm going to use super glue on this side. And cardboard will tend to soak up super glue, so you'll probably have to put a little bit more than you think. All right, and this is where you got to be careful. Don't mess it up. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Because if you mess it up, you ain't moving it back. All right, so that is about a 64th of an inch misaligned. It's a little bit that way. That's okay. That's kind of why I overcut this, so there was a little bit of play in there, so that's okay. Ooh, I can feel it getting warm. Chemical reaction. Super glue cures, by the way, with water. I believe it's water. The hydrogen and oxygen in the air actually is what makes super glue cure. So you can speed up the curing process of super glue by touching it with your fingers, which is why it instantly bonds to your fingers, because there's water on your fingers. So the reason I didn't use white glue, maybe you're asking, you can, but white glue is water-based, and water warps cardboard. So if you use a lot of white glue and you like put this together like this and set it and then leave and come back in like an hour, it's going to be curved. So if you're going to use white glue, you're going to want to clamp things together and walk away for several hours, right? Otherwise, and even if you do that, the glue may not be fully cured by that time, and it might warp later after it fully cures. So just something to be aware of. That's why we're not going to use brush-on acrylic paints when we paint this, and I'm not really using a lot of water-based glue. I might on some little areas, like using it to like glue two little points together on cardboard, great. But a big area or a big line, it's going to warp it. I guarantee it. And you'll be ticked off when it dries, and you come back the next day and you're like, Oilers was right. So I've done it. Super glue, you won't have that problem. You also won't have that problem with styro glue, but styro glue is very thick. So this was probably not ideal for small, thin cardboard projects. And you can use epoxy, but epoxy is kind of expensive and takes time to mix. So you could use it though if you have it. There's nothing against using epoxy. I might utilize epoxy on parts of this. This also, by doing these 2 layers too, it provides a guide edge. Because what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this a little guy like this, a little sneak preview around that guide edge and glue it into place to get the curve. But the super glue works well with that. So we're going to glue like the straight. We're going to let it cure. Then we're going to glue little bits of the curve, let it cure, then glue the end, and then we're going to snip it off, right? Or you can cut based on the template, glue that in place, and then cut the back template, glue that in place, trim the difference. That works as well. You can use 2 pieces. You can do 3 pieces. You can do straight, and a curve. Whatever you're comfortable with, they'll all work. I'm going to do it the way that I think is the least amount of steps, but requires some level of confidence and experience. So if you don't have that, try some of that's why I made the template. Maybe gets people into it, or it's at least good to have as a reference, depending on how your brain works. Just putting this spare cardboard down for my glue so I don't drip it on my nice mat. So I would say too, when you're putting a lot of super glue like I just did, don't put a lot out near the edges, because when you push it down, it's going to squish out. And you don't want it to bleed over onto the edges. In fact, I probably should have done this on this piece of cardboard like I did with that, so it didn't glue to my mat. That kind of rhymed a little bit, didn't it? Just line this up. There we go. See, you can see that glue leaching out right there. There's a little bit of a color difference. It looks like there's a shadow there. That's the glue squishing out. That's where I probably put a little bit too much glue. But the other areas it didn't. So a lot of glue in the center and a little bit out to the edge, and then push and kind of work it outwards. And you'll know if you put too much. Super glue dries pretty quick. Thank goodness. Yeah, look at that. That is nice and strong already. Look at my adorable 2/3 of a mailbox. Yeah, that's pretty good already. So I also have super glue accelerator here. This is Instaset. You can make accelerator too, by the way, which I plan on doing. I just keep forgetting to, because I keep just having this around. You can make accelerator. I saw somebody do it recently. I forgot about it, but I got a nice reminder recently. Somebody, I think somebody I follow on Instagram did a little bit of reminder video. You do like a spray bottle like this, full of water, and like 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Mix it up, and the baking soda and water will like Instaset the super glue. It's a little slower than Instaset, because Instaset is basically instant. This takes like 2 seconds, but it dries it hard or cures it hard. So you can do like a whole bottle of water and like 1 or 2 teaspoons of baking soda, depending on the size of your bottle. You don't have to be, it's not perfect. You just need a little bit of that baking soda with the water to cause the reaction. The more baking soda, the more intense or hot the reaction. So just be careful. But you can do that. I wouldn't recommend that on cardboard, because you're going to spray it with water and it's going to warp it. This Instaset is not water-based. I think it's oil-based. I don't remember. But it won't warp this as badly. It will affect it a little bit, so I'm going to use it sparingly. Actually, I might even brush it on. You can take the cap off, right? And if you have some cheap brushes you don't mind ruining, you can dip it in there and then spread it and then put your glue, and it will cure, So, but you're ruining a brush, just so you know, if you do that. Okay. Just going to make sure these stayed flat. Right. Yeah. They got it a little bit, when I was pushing down, they curled a little bit. But not much. Okay. So you can use baking soda to make rust. Absolutely. Baking soda and sand and any kind of fine granule of anything that won't rot, really. Baking soda is a good one because it's very controllable and very fine. Okay. So this is where, do I want to put down a bigger piece of cardboard? I think I do. Or I could probably still do it on this little guy. So this is where we're going to start gluing this in place. I glued the shiny side out. It's got some ink impregnated in it from the cardboard printing on the cereal box, so it might make a nicer surface to paint on. This might show more texture, that's why I turned it out. So I'm just trying to decide if I want to keep it that way. I think I do. So you can see with the edge I created when I glue this in, there will be a slight edge. This will be sticking out a little bit. That's how we can bring in the sanding. Or we can do some other detail adding tricks to hide those little overlapping seams. Or you can leave them alone if you like them. They look fine too that way. So, or you can put a piece of wire to add that rounded piece that you get, the little tubing edge that you get to reinforce the corners. You can do it with aluminum tubing too. We'll see where we go with this. You can get super hyper crazy real if you want to. Just depends on the time you have and what's important to you. So I'm going to go ahead and this is a lot about it, visually aligning things, trusting yourself, trust in yourself. That's not a song, is it? All right, I'm going to go ahead and put glue along my outer edge here. Not the whole thing, just like a good section of it. And I'm going to hold this down. This is where you got to be a little bit patient. I'm going to want to get in a hurry, but I shouldn't. And then I'm going to spray it with the Instaset. And I'm actually going to put a little bit more glue in there. Just as like a binder. Buffer binder thingy dingy. Hopefully it doesn't glue through to the cardboard below. It might. And spray it again. There we go. Give it a sec. And yeah, this is where no matter what glue you're using, you're going to have to be patient if you do this method. You don't have to do it this way either. You could just carbonate a foam using the template. Shh, don't tell anyone I told you that. There we go. Look at that. Super glue is amazing. Get some of this tea that we're sponsored by. Okay. So now, this is where you can take and you can start to kind of curve this. I'm just going to hold this. You could have done this beforehand. I'm just doing it now because I am. But you can take this and start to kind of curl this cardboard, kind of like you would a ribbon for like a present, right? I'm just pinching it and letting it kind of curl like that. Just do what you're like. Try not to create a fold in there, right? It's really easy to create a crease or a fold with cardboard. Actually, let me show you. Let me just show you so you don't do it. So if I go like this too quick, oh, dang it. I might have gotten a curve, but I've got these weird sort of creases in there. If you do it too hard, too fast, you'll see that, and that'll forever be there for the paint. You can't really sand that down because you'd have to be able to sand through to something below. So just kind of be gentle. Be gentle. Okay, so now, pretty confident in that. Just gonna make sure I'm happy with the alignment. Don't want to make any weird adjustments before. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm gonna just glue like this half of the arc, and then I'll glue that half of the arc. Noah's mailbox arc. Okay. Doot. I'm going to do this actually from the outside, because then I can line it up better with the outside edge. Okay, and this one you might just kind of have to hold. It's going to be hard to control otherwise. Go ahead and spray in there. Put a little bit more glue. You don't have to put the secondary glue in there. I am, just because I like it to be super strong. Because when I've done this method before, if I don't put enough glue in there and I get too rough with it, or I like hit it with my hand, it can crack it back off. Because the super glue is crackable, if that makes sense, especially on a really thin joint like that. So I'm just doing it in case of any accidents. But if you're patient, which is the opposite of me, you can do it with thinner amounts of glue, not be in such a rush. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to kind of pull this back a little bit and realign it just a little bit. There we go. Cool. All right, so that one's doing pretty good. Now I'm going to go, whoops, do it again on the next portion of the arc. Pretty good. So I'm just going to hold that in place for a sec while my glue starts to curate. Now I'm going to spray. You can't see it, sorry, my hand's covering it, but I'm just going to spray in there. And when I'm confident this is in a good spot, always cover your super glue too, even if you're going to use it again right away, just so the fumes don't get in your face. You can wear a respirator, but these VOCs, the volatile oxidizing compounds on super glue, usually smaller than most respirators, will get in there anyways, or some of them will. So I just make sure I'm in an open area. There's a fan going, something like that. Right now I'm in an open area. I don't have a fan on, but I have a ton of space around me, and I know my breath is just moving it away from me, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you're in a tight space, have a fan on, wear a respirator, both. Okay. So, and I'm not really concerned about how ugly it looks in here. Like I've got a little bit of a glob, a little bit of super glue glob, but I don't really care about that. I'm just trying to make sure this outer seam looks as good as possible. So now I curved it a little bit farther down than I needed, so I'm just going to kind of work it back straight a little bit. It's pretty good. Let's get down to business to make. And you notice how I didn't cut out the bottom on this side? It would have made it way too floppy and weak. I'll cut it out when I've glued it all the way around on both sides, right? If I had tried to cut out this bottom section on this first, I would have been trying to grapple with two little legs. They would have want to fold out of place, or the tension, the returning tension on this edge of this cardboard would peel away. I don't want to deal with that. So I'm strategically, I cut these out just for the sake of ease later. Also help me measure where this went, but strategically I'll cut this out. So I'll get my measurements and sketch on here and cut that out afterwards carefully. Just gonna kind of, the more you can coax it into the shape it needs to sit in before gluing it, like this is springing off a little bit, the more you can coax it to match the shape without it springing off of it, like if I get it to just sit there without the glue, the better it's gonna glue. The easier it's gonna be to glue, the stronger it will be. But this is close enough for me. I'm happy with this. Looks like I peeled it off a little bit. Alternatively, you could line it up first like this without putting glue on it, which I'll probably just do right here, and then put the glue in after you've got it aligned. Like that. So you see we're about an hour in here. Well, maybe we're about 45 minutes into this, and again, I'm talking, but you could see how if you know exactly what you're doing and you just dive into this, even scratch building, you know, you'd only be into this about 20 to 30 minutes if you were just going and you had some music in the background. So it's a fairly quick process for something like this. Other objects, much more time intensive. The painting obviously is going to be added. I'm just talking about the modeling process. And now we're just going to glue this last little bit on. let this... Blowing on it does work with super glue because there's moisture in your breath, which will help cure the glue. It doesn't work as good as you might think, but it does work. Okay. Neat. So this one should fit pretty much right in there. I'll have to do some coaxing. But if I just line it up like that, like this is a little off right there. But this should basically just fit right in there. Nice and easy. Pretty close. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so I should be able to just kind of set this in here. I might need to, like this is a little off. I'll have to kind of hold a few things in place and glue them separately. But we're pretty close. I'm going to cut this off now. The excess. Just going to line this up on one of my cutting mat lines. Make sure it's nice and straight. Just line up the ruler. And then trim this guy off. Scrap. Look, it's a miniature horse trough. But you see how quickly you can make three-dimensional shapes by thinking in terms of surfaces and edge curves. If you can kind of break an object down into different stackable layers of surface, flat surfaces, and edge curves, you can reverse engineer how to make most things in miniature. When you have compound curves or compound convex objects or convex objects, that's the right word. That gets a little harder. Like if you're dealing with actually gets a lot harder. If you're dealing with elliptical spheres that are actually ellipses, and you're trying to intersect that with some other object, that's complex. That's more of like a freehand sculpting type of solid foam thing. But if you can break it down into like this is one surface, this is one surface, this is one surface. So the base shape is really 1, 2, 3 surfaces, right? So if you can break it down sort of in your head how to explode that apart into flat sheets, you can reassemble it into the object. And then you can add on the additional things you need later, or cut out, which is what we're going to do for the mail drop-off slot here. We're going to cut out that thing later. So additive and subtractive, or create a solid and then subtract from that solid. That's kind of how I learned how to do this. I've talked about that before when I did 3D modeling in high school in the computer. I already learned that from drafting, doing mechanical drafting and architectural drafting. I learned the basics for plotting that out in 2 dimensions. But then I was able to wrap my head around how to take apart, put back together these things in 3 dimensions. And so this is really the result of that. Thank you guys all for being here again. Thank you for all the likes. Much appreciated. Lets people know there's something interesting to learn, watch, or laugh at. Okay, so I'm gonna just bend this in. I'm just checking the fit to see how well, again, before I glue it, I can get it to fit just sitting together. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. Pretty darn close. Not perfect, but good enough for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in one side first here. I can be a little bit more confident here and liberal with the glue, since I know this is already going to kind of slot right into place. Got to work quick though, and watch the glue hitting your hands. Alrighty. Look at that. Gluey. Gluey. Oh no, shit, we gotta go. Comment below if you know that song. I bet you don't. You probably do. All right, that's pretty good. Now that side is basically in place from like here to here. I'm just going to kind of make sure this is sitting where I want, and then I'm going to make a big move. I'm going to glue this whole top of this curve in place. Okay. Get in here and just drop some glue in there. I'm actually dripping it into the spots. It's a little far away. Okay, just making sure that's lined how I want. It is. I'm going to go ahead and just do the whip it good. Super glue it. I got accused of dad jokes on the stream, even though I'm not a dad. I am an uncle. Maybe they're uncle jokes. Not quite dad jokes. Maybe they're uncle jokes. Excuse me. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, cool. So that curve, I'm pretty happy with how that's following that curve. There's some little stick outs here, but I can trim that off later when the glue is like even more cured. So I'm going to line this up. There's a little bit of tear here. I'm not really worried about that. I can turn that into a rusty spot. Wherever you have a little tear like that, you can put some tab on some orange and brown paint, and it will just look like it started to rust. A little hide your crimes tip from Euler's Workshop. Okay. Okay. Just kind of hold that and do another little squishy spray. Getting there. We're getting there. It's looking like a thing. It's a little wobbly. That's okay. I just torqued something the wrong way. I can trim that down later, though. Okay. Woo! Get those fumes out. I'm just kind of bending it as it's gluing just to make sure it was a little bit parallelogrammy. There we go. There we go. A little bit better. Sometimes it's just like, you know, doing this. Let's check it here. So we've got this side. Yep. And we've got this side. And we've got the front. And we roll that. We get the back. Yippee! Now I'm going to go ahead and... Remember those? I cut these out earlier. Guess what? I'm just going to use it as a reference to cut these out. And I don't think I can see pencil very well on this. So I might need to use a pen. Let me just check. Ooh, very hard to see. Yeah, let me get a pen. These are cool if they're not dry. I haven't used these in a long time. Okay. There we go. There we go. I can see that better. So I'm just going to use my scissors to get these started because I'm kind of going into a three-dimensional object here. You could draw it down here and try to cut it out down here. I actually don't trust myself with that angle. You might do better at that. I won't. So I'm just going to kind of scissor cut this going to the outside of my line, or the inside of my line, excuse me. inside of the line. Stay inside the line, Jordan. Okay, now I'm going to probably have to score this a few times. Corn cereal. The corniest cereal around. So this is, you're going to have to be a little careful if you do it this way. Again, you don't have to do this. You can cut them all out beforehand. I would just worry that I would break these legs off trying to hold everything in place with the glue. If I can get these curves done, I can fold it down. Yes, like that. Just kind of work it back and forth. Break those fibers and then, yep, and do an easier cut on top. Don't poke yourself through the cardboard either. My finger is just below here. Okay, there's one. Just gonna do some touch up, and this is again where you can use some sandpaper. Just gonna cut that a little bit straighter. Cut was a little bit off. There we go. Can I get in there with my scissors? There we go. Just trimming it up a little. See, it helps to have a few different cutting utensils nearby, just so you can use everything you got to get it as clean as you possibly can. And when you paint it, you'll actually add another layer of material thickness that you can sand again. So we'll probably put a base coat on this, and I'll clean up anything with after the base coat, because once you base coat something, it reveals all the little imperfections in your sculpt or your build. But that's good, because then you have an opportunity to fix it before you finish paint it. Don't skip that step if you want your stuff to look real nice and clean. Some people do, and then it becomes obvious that they did. And I don't think they realize it. All right, same thing on this side. Trace it out with this super fine tip Copic marker. There it is. I'm going to try this one differently. I'm going to start from the center and go out. Or start from the top and go down, I should say. See that? I flexed that a little bit. Those are the types of things I worry about. So less pressure. So I'm going to provide return pressure with my thumb here. There we go. That was smarter. Gotta love those sounds. Squeaky! Squeaky, squeaky. Squeaky, squeaky. Squeaky, squeaky. Oh, I was going to tell you guys the story about why I like Pops so much. So, we didn't have a ton of money growing up. Actually, in fact, we were probably pretty poor. But, you know, these sugary cereals, not only were they super unhealthy, but they were pretty expensive considering. And I had a couple of friends. I've talked about them before. I'd go over to their house, spend the night. A couple of friends. They were sisters. We'd hang out. Our moms were friends. And I always looked forward to breakfast at their house because their mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I grew up with a single mom who was pretty busy. So I learned how to cook eggs and things on my own pretty young. And, you know, so we always just made whatever we had time to make. But when I went over to their house, they had a stay-at-home mom who would cook breakfast, you know, and sometimes for just prepare cereal and stuff. And so if I went over there like on a weekend or something with them, I was always like, sweet, what are we getting this morning? Because she'd have time to cook like French toast or something. So sometimes she'd make like French toast. We'd stay up, you know, all night watching VHS copies of Disney movies and playing with their Barbie dolls. And then I'd be like, sweet. And sometimes she'd pull out the cereals. She'd just put them out on the counter and be like, pick which one you want. And a lot of times they would have cornflakes and they would have Pops. So I would always eat Pops when I was over at their house. I would always be super happy about it. And I think a couple of times my mom came by to pick me up in the morning and she'd see me eating Pops and she'd be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, what? They gave it to me. So that's one of the reasons I like Pops, because it's associated with fun memories with some of my friends, and you know, something I didn't really get at all on a regular basis. So you know, feels special and nostalgic to me. But again, if you haven't commented or you've come in late to the stream, what is the best cereal, or what is your favorite cereal? Because we're working with cereal box cardboard today. Okay. There we go. It's so cute. What is this? A mailbox for ants. I was like throwing stuff around after I make it, because I'm like, hey, I'm so happy that I made that strong. I'm pushing on it and it's good to go. Okay, so now I can do pretty much anything I want. Next is the next step. I can cut out the slot for the mail thing. I can glue in a bottom. Actually, I should probably glue that last. I can glue a door on, whatever I feel like doing. So I have this reference here for where the cutout needs to be. And I have this reference here for where you glue the drop-down the drop-down mail slot. So you would cut this out of the template and fold it, and it would be glued right here. It's notated too. Mail slot face plate, fold glue location, reference line, mail slot face, right? So it's on this template. If you get this from me, everything's notated where it's supposed to go. So if you cut it all out and just refer to the template, you should be good to go. So I should probably cut out that face, which is going to be based on this dimension, which needs to be a little bit smaller because I have these thick pieces in here. So I'm going to cut off a little bit of this. Another thing, actually, I didn't think about it, but I could have done it. When we didn't have this wrap glued in place and I had two sides, I could have marked the reference line for this, and I could have used some of my little cutoff pieces to create a little abutment. So I could have glued a piece here, cut this off, and glued another piece here, like that, inside, so that when I need the reference, I can slip this up in there and glue it up against it or glue it back to it. So I have something just like I did for this to like have an edge to push it up against. These are, again, it's all optional, just whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm just going to check, see that fits. Yep, that fits. So I'm going to use my reference again. I'd be going off dimensions if I was going completely from scratch. But since I have reference, I'm going to use it. So this is the fold line, and this is the cut line. Fold line, cut line. Just like this. Whoops. Tilted that when I did it. How straight is that? It's pretty straight. That's okay. All right, so now I do need this to be my fold line, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it because I want to just fold this in half. Well, mostly in half. I'm going to just, I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to score it so I get a clean, sharp line. This is a little cardboard trick. You don't have to do this with all of it, but I'm just going to go like this. Just gonna drag my blade across it like that. So there's this little line there. You see that? And then when I take this and I put it against a ruler as a buck, and then I do that, I get a nice, pretty sharp line on the other side. You could also use pliers and then fold it. But if I try to just fold it without that little break there, right, and I just try to fold it, I could have a much like more filleted or rounded bend, right? This gets it a little bit sharper with cardboard. You could also cut both sides if you're confident and fold it. You could fold it on the sides you cut it. Those are all different methods that will achieve sort of similar but different results. So this is going to go up in here, right? This is what's going to go up inside of here. So again, you see on the template there, this can go up. I'm going to bend it to this shape here on the template and match it. That's going to go up in there, right? So it would be wise of me to glue the other details onto this. So the other detail I have mentioned here is the mail slot handle, which is just a rectangle that glues on and angles down. You can add more detail if you want. If you want to get a piece of wire and make like a handle out of like a round bar, you can do that. If you want to add different like little support strut pieces or support girder pieces to this, like my real mailbox has, you can glue those on before and add all the detail, because this is going to go inside of here, and the more enclosed you make something, the harder it's going to be to get in there and glue things. Obviously you could use tweezers, but if you do this all now and then you glue the whole piece in, it'll probably work out a little bit better for you. So what I might do is I might actually glue a little side piece on here, like a little side slot piece, to help keep this the dimension that I want it. So I'm going to just kind of hold this where I want it. Actually, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to cut this out first, and that's going to inform where I want to put this. So I'm going to mark, I got to figure out which side I want to be the front here. It's just going to be the best looking side. Just going to kind of determine that from just a quick visual. Probably go with this side. And then I'm going to mark where the bottom of this box cuts. I'm just going to look straight down and line my ruler up, and then use that Copic marker. Give myself a reference. So there's the bottom of that. And then on this dimension is what? About 7/8 of an inch. So basically, once you wrap that, it's going to be a little bit less than that. So I'm just going to eyeball this one. I just need the line to be pretty much right at the ridge, a little bit below where the ridge is at. So if I mark the ridge and kind of draw the ridge, there's my ridge. It's pretty faint. I want it to be a little bit below that. So like right there. Yep, right about there. Maybe even a little bit lower than that, actually. Yeah, let me go a little lower. This one I'm just eyeballing. Doesn't have to be a perfect measurement. And then I had this thickness of the leg here is what I use to determine the width of this up here. So I'm just going to use my cutout to determine the width of my slot up here, where it needs to go. We're going to trace that, we're going to trace that. So I'm a little off center here, so I'm going to just mark my line again a little bit tighter in. That's good enough for me. Where'd my cap go? See your comments, guys. Hold on a sec. All right. Ooh, lots. Oh, we got some people that like pops. Sweet. Just stretch my lower back really quick. Anybody have a spare spine I could borrow? Okay. So now we're going to do the sort of freehand cutting again here. Well, I could use a ruler on parts of this, like right here. Okay. Okie dokie. And then we do this one. Blade is starting to get a little bit dull. Might switch the blade out. This is where you want to be careful and you do not cut yourselves. So make sure your fingers are out of the way of the direction of your blade. I think I'm hitting some super glue. Yeah, I am. I'm hitting super glue in there. See that glue in there? I'm cutting through that glue. That's why. It's probably going to dull my blade a lot, but that's okay. There we go. Just had to crack through. There we go. And in this case, I'm actually moving the piece with the blade too, trying to get the blade to go down this curved surface and be straight is going to be hard. So I'm kind of holding my pinky in this to keep it aligned to at the same position on the actual object, and then moving most of the object to get the cut. More super glue. Just rock it back and forth. Once I know I've got a straight score through the cardboard and there's glue back there, I can kind of rock it a little bit and be confident that I'm not going to wobble my line. Do the same thing over here. Really close. There we go. Look at that. Here's the mail, it never fails, and when it's here, it makes me wanna wail. Mail. That was a really bad Blue's Clues impression. Dora Explorer ripped off Blue's Clues with the map song. I'm the map, I'm the map, where's the map? That's like the mail song from Blue's Clues. Childhood ruined, emotional damage. Okay. Hello. Hello. I am the mail finger. All right. So this, I should be able to get this up in here. Look at that. Look at that. And I might actually trim this down a little bit on both sides. Now that it's in there, this is where you have to custom, you're gonna have to custom fit all your parts. The template is just a starting guide, right? So because again, you're dealing with material thickness. So the template piece that I just referenced is if I was using pieces of paper. So if I assembled these sides out of paper, it'd be thin enough to where once I assembled this, everything would line up. But because I have two thicknesses of cardboard, which is equals about a 1/16 of an inch, And this, everything's getting pushed and tweaked sort of a little bit differently. So that's why when I put this in, this didn't line up exactly with this, and this was a little bit behind center. So I have to custom fit and trim these a little bit to get them a little bit closer to where I need them to be. And that is just model making, scratch building. Scratch model making, building thingy, bottle. So now this should be a little closer. Yep. There we go. Pretty close. So what I might do to help assist myself here is I might glue, well, actually I might be able to just squeeze this from the sides. Yeah, baby. And glue that in place. So I was gonna glue a little, let's see if I can point this out to you, a little strip right here, which would be right under this edge, so that this edge would just sit right on that while I glued the top in. But I think I can just hold everything in place. Just put outward pressure on it like a diamond. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Let me just clean up this slot a little bit while I have more space to move my scissors around. What do you guys think? Is this going well or not? Would you do it differently? Am I an idiot? I get comments like that sometimes. You moron. That's not how you open a bottle of glue. Thankfully they're rare, but I do get them. You stupid artist. At least that's how they sound sometimes. You stupid dumb artist with all your dumb ideas. How dare you show me how to do something? Okay. Here goes nothing. In the words of Samuel L. Mr. Arnold, hold on to your butts. If I just breathe, I'll get lung cancer. Dude. All right. Take a drink of tea while this cures. That's doing pretty good. A little bit wobbly, but that's okay. Okay, I am pretty happy with that, the way that is. I'm going to make a little handle. And I just talked about doing the handle before I glue this in. But don't listen to me, kids. Do as I do, not as I say. Do as I say, not as I do. I don't actually reverse that. Sorry. Okay. So we're just going to make this little handle right here, this mail slot handle. It's just a little rectangle. And this is just the general size, right? It was meant to be glued on this line here. So we just cut out, whoops, got some glue drip coming down there. Whoopsie, whoopsie. Get that off my mat. Slightly uncured glue alert. Hold on. Got a little spot of glue that didn't cure right. Let me just use something to spread it around before it glues into a blob. Okay. Sometimes that happens. Watch out, radioactive man. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, mail slot. So this is just a dimension I came up with. So if you were, we just cut out this plate, we folded it along this line, you would cut out this and glue it here. This is where the collection times label would go, right? So everything's marked for you. If you want to, you can cut out each piece and then trace it and then cut it out as a starting point, or you can do what I just did and use this as a reference, or you can do a combination of the two, whatever you want. It'll all turn out just fine. Just do what you're comfortable with. And if you have thicker cardboard or thicker styrene, just realize, like when I trim the width of this down, you're going to have to do a bigger trim, right? When I trim this out, you're just going to need well, not this, but when I put the bottom in, you're going to have to make a more of a compensation, right? These dimensions are the same as this width and this width. So again, if you cut this all out of paper and assemble it, it would fit perfect, but you're going to cut it out of a material that's thicker than paper. So you're going to have to make compensations for where things go in between or a butt, just to make sure everything fits nicely. And that's going to be up to you with whatever material you use. Thank you for all the likes, guys. I really appreciate that. All right. So this, just to show you the difference, this is the one that I made from scratch without any measurements. I just guessed. This is the actual 1/12 scale, like real life. So this one I just guessed at, and this is the actual 1/12 scale. So this is probably closer to like 1/9 scale, maybe 1/10 or 1/9 scale. This is 1/12 scale. So this was just guessing, and this was actually measuring a real mailbox and dividing the measurements by 12. So I'm just gonna slice a little handle off of this. I already see that my handle is not straight. I'm also going to round the edges of my handle just a little bit. Make it look a little fancier than it needs to be. All right, this is where I will get my tweezers. Guess what? I'm gonna use some hot glue because I don't feel like holding this. I know if I try to super glue this, I'm gonna it's gonna get all misaligned. So I'm just gonna do this visually. So it's gonna get glued in like right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I have hot glue that's been waiting and ready to be used, burning my nose over here with its toxic devil fumes. So I'm gonna put a bunch on the bottom where I want this, right? And I'm just going to go like this and just visually kind of align it. There we go. Hot glue is the devil. Looks pretty good. So there's our basic shape. So this is where you can really start to personalize things, okay? If you're making this. So this, I had the mail access door, right? So you could design this. There's actually a ton of different styles. The most modern one is what I did the basic shapes off of this, but there's older styles, middle century styles, ones that open forward, ones that slide. Like there's a lot of different variations. This is the most common style, but this is the mail access door. So you could cut this plate out and glue it on there, and it would look like a feature that would open. And then you could glue a dot or a screw head to make it look like a keyhole to resemble that, just to give the effect of that. And then this is a drip flashing right here. So there is, above all the doors on these, the front facing doors, there's a little metal edge sticking out. That's so that if it rains and it slides down, it stops on that drip edge, slides over, and then drips off and comes down over here instead of into the slot and down onto the mail. I felt like that was an important feature to include in my template because it helps sell the realism of it, even if you don't realize what that's for. Sometimes you get those above doors, like exterior man doors on warehouse buildings. There's a drip edge or drip flashing above. All these mailboxes have some version of that to keep wicking away water from getting into the mail. So I'm going to cut one of those out, and you could cut a mail slot door and slap it on here. There's also another way to add detail. So you see on here, I've got this rim trimmy true. I don't even know what to call it, going around the edge here. So So these mailboxes either have that, it's a flat trim like that, or it's a tubular shaped trim like a tube that goes around. There are different ways you could attack doing the tube, and I will show you those real quick. I'll probably just do this to simplify this build so we don't have to wait too long for things. But you could make it tubular by using wire. You could actually get aluminum tubing and a tube bender and bend that. That's going to be much more difficult to get accurate and glue and have it sit where you want. So I'll let you experiment with that if you want to try that. But this is probably the simplest method and still sells the effect of looking like a real mailbox. And then what you have is you have rivets too all the way around. I'll let you decide if you want to add them. They're not necessarily necessary for visual appeal or to sell the illusion of a miniature mailbox, but if you want to add them, it just makes them look even more realistic. I use nails when I did this one. You can use nails. You can use sprinkles from cakes. You can cut off little tips of plastic tubing. You can just poke holes in it to resemble little dots. You can draw them on. There's a lot of different ways to approach that. You can use glue. You can use glue dots. I've seen that done. That's actually a good use for white glue. If you can be consistent, you can do little glue dots like you're decorating a cake. The thing about those is they can like peel off real easy, but they do look good. They have like a little roundness to them. It's another way to do rivets. So yeah, so on this one, I made up like an access door here and a slot here, which no mailboxes really have that. But you see, I basically followed the same idea here when I did this one. I put a drip edge flashing thing looking here, but none of the mailboxes in real life actually have those. And they don't usually have legs like this. Again, I kind of made this up from memory when I did it. So what I'm going to do before I do an access door or anything or a drip edge, I'm going to do a strip all the way around, right, to add that dimension that I keep talking about. And then I'm going to fit those pieces inside that dimension here. And then I don't know if I want to do anything else in here. I'll probably leave that alone. But I might actually get some thinner materials like some cardstock or even some paper and add some little edging pieces. We can get real hyper real without going fully hyper real with just a few simple things. So I'm going to do the edging. And I don't know what this dimension is. This is 3/16, about 3/16. Yeah, 3/16. So I need whatever this dimension is in 3/16, and I know what that is for measuring my template, because these two seams abut and make this continuous dimension without compensating for material thickness, which is why I split this template right here. I didn't cut you the whole piece so you'd wrap it around, because if you cut this length out of a material that's thicker than paper and then you curve it, it's going to shrink the dimension as you curve it. So I split a seam there so you could cut one piece, and then you could fit them as you see fit, or you could determine if you needed to cut one a little longer. You know, that's why there's a split here. For those of you who might be wondering if you got one of these templates, that's the reason. So you can customize it. Trim. Almost forgot what I was doing. So, dimension. That's what I needed. I just needed a rough dimension. The dimension was about, if you take away the split here, it's about 9 3/8, but I'm going to cut two 10-inch strips, or at least 10-inch minimum, and then I'll cut more off of that. Here we go. Here's the scrap piece I was using earlier. And I'm going to cut two strips. Chicken strips. All right. So I'm just going to mark what 3/16 looks like here in a few places, because I do want it to be pretty accurate. I don't need it to be flawless, but I need it to be close. There we go. When I'm doing thin strips like this with cardboard, I don't try to do it in one pass, because invariably I will tear it, I will curve it, I will curl it. So I do like 2 passes, like that, and then I push hard. Okay, that. I'll actually show you what I'm talking about here in a sec. It might not do it because I'm going to try to demonstrate it, but we just line up these marks, do this again. 1 pass, 2 pass, and then press hard. Boom. So let me just show you, if I push really hard from the get-go, It may not do it now that I want to demonstrate it. If I push hard from the get-go. See how that curved out up here? It actually curved out as I cut. Because now, if I try to realign it to this piece, it actually is bowed. It's bowed a little bit like this. It actually didn't do it that bad. But it does do that with styrene, especially when you cut styrene. If you just push hard and cut through like that, it'll curl out because of the tension that's releasing from your cut. So one way to get around that too, I'll just show you. Instead of cutting from the top down, start a little bit below the top, like right there, and then cut. See that? Still got a little bit up here. Then when you cut that, there'll be no tension relief that went outward. The tension relief will go this way, and it won't carry across the whole piece. So just a little cutting tip from all the mistakes that I've made. Okay, so this should fit pretty nicely here. Yep. This also should kind of go on. Oh, it's too short. Dang it. I didn't measure. I just started cutting without thinking. Ugh. That's okay. I've got extra material for later. That's what happens when you're streaming and trying to do things. Let's do that again. This one I don't care because it's a scrap piece, so I just cut through. So let me measure that 3/16 again. 3/16. 3/16. There we go. Let's try that again. Lisa Al-Ghaib. Okay, and when I do two measurements like this along a long skinny measurement, I will just visually check the thickness of the thing that's sitting out from the side of the ruler to make sure my measurements were off. And I could tell it was actually a little bit off up here. So when you're dealing with small measurements, if your pencil mark is off by a 64th of an inch and you're dealing with a long distance, you could be off by like a whole degree or 2 degrees when you cut, and your piece won't be straight. So just pay attention to the thickness of your piece up against the edge of the ruler visually. Even if you line up marks you made, you might realize you need to compensate a little bit. So I'm gonna start just below the top. I'm gonna score it, and then I'm gonna push hard, and then I'm gonna go top again. Boom. There we go. Start just below the top, score it, push hard, and then do the top again. Oops, a little off. That's okay. Okay, this should be. Oh, those are not the same thickness. I'm getting in a rush to fix my problem, and in my rush to fix my problem, I created another problem. See those? The first one is a little thicker than the second one. The second one is more accurate. Okay, guess what? I'm gonna just do this with my eyeballs. I'm gonna use my good old Ojos, my Ojos, and I'm gonna just make it work. There we go. All right. So now I'm just going to pick the two pieces that are closest in dimension, which is the two bigger ones. Works for me. Okay. There's that. Voila. There we go. Look at that. It goes all the way around now. Ha ha. Gotcha. Okay. I'm just going to use my super glue. Again, thanks for all the likes, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know it's a vacation weekend for people. But that art never stops for me. Well, it does sometimes when I'm busy with, you know, family and health, which has been my hang up lately. Okay, gotta stay healthy. So I'm going to put the super duper glue here. I'm going to spread it around a little bit. It's pretty thickly laid. I'm just going to use my finger really quick. Wipe it off right away. And then we're going to do this. There we go. Here comes the messy part. Alright, I'm just going to carry this around. Just keep gluing it and keeping it aligned. And I'm paying attention to the bleed over here, just moving it with my fingernail. I don't want to have to sand down a bunch of super glue glop that comes out under the edge of my trim here. Just doing the curve, I'm doing a bit at a time, like 2 or 3 little sections, just because try to do it all at once, I guarantee you'll have a problem. You'll hold it and then your thumb will slip and it'll pull it off and it'll glue in the weird angle and then you'll have to cut it up and it'll be a mess. Better to go like 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2. You'll get a better, tighter glue up. Gluing around a curve. Einstein theorized that you could travel through curves by gluing around them. There we go. If you whisper, it makes it a little bit easier, I think. There we go. And now we circumcise it. There we go. Sorry, that's my goofy noises. Okay, so same thing here. Just gonna kind of glue the straight line here. Spread it around a little bit. Just gonna drop that a little bit lower than the bottom of the leg so I can trim it off flush later. It's starting to look like a mailbox made of cereal. That's what we're going for, right? There we go. Almost there. It's so pretty. 2 hours in, not bad. Again, if you take out all the dialogue and the distractions and the chit-chat and you just go for it, yeah, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, 20 minutes of modeling, taking your time. Have yourself a nice mailbox. And if you do 2 or 3 at a time, right, you can work in batches if you want to make a few. You know, you can do like cut out like 3 pieces and then glue 3 pieces, and then it'll take you a little bit longer, but it'll kind of compound the time smaller. If that makes sense. So that instead of each one taking an hour and a half to model, you'll have maybe 3 that'll take you 2 hours to model. It's amazing how that works. It's like mass manufacturing. You can't manufacture mass. What are you talking about? All right, so you see my cut here on the leg is not straight. Now that I've put this straight object, so I can come in and correct that afterwards. So it was actually at an angle coming towards the curve. So I'll come in here with my blade and correct that. The other sides look pretty good. And the more we glue on, the stronger this gets. Like every time we glue a piece on, it just adds to the strength of it. Yeah, I said it. All right, let me get that and do that before I forget. Just gonna trim up this front one a little bit too. There we go. There was some like, what do you call it? Sort of like a, kind of like flash that comes over the edge of the cardboard. I'm just trimming that off of on this back side, because when you paint it, it'll want to curl one way or the other when the paint dries, and the more you illuminate of that before you paint, the easier the painting and finishing will be. Come on. Come on. Come on. There you go. Okay. Now this one. Just going to carefully follow the edge here. So you could also get drywall putty too, if you wanted to. It's water-based, so if you put a lot of it on, it will warp your cardboard. But you could use a little bit of that if you have like a weird spot where you can't get it straight again or level it. You can get some of that in there and sand it down. You could also use Bondo. You could also do that with milliput clay? I think that's what it's called. You could also do it with plumber's epoxy, but that probably won't bond too well to the cardboard, so never mind. You could do it with epoxy sculpt, which is a two-part of like clay you mix, and it hardens really hard like epoxy in a short amount of time. These are ways to fix little errors where you might have chunks missing or things you need to fix on a water base. You can use non-water based hardening clays to fix it. You can also mix your own up using like white glue and baking soda. Or no, sorry, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Can't remember the one. I'm thinking of another one that you can make. It's not really a clay, it's more of a filler. Let me think on that. I can't remember which one it is. It's not white glue, it's something else. You could also use super glue and baking soda as a filler and then sand it back down, because it creates like a hard material. So there we go. There is the base model for the mailbox. So now we can add an access door if we want to, which I probably will. And then we can add the drip edge. Let me, I'm gonna use my reference as where the template as a reference for where I want to put the drip edge here. So this was the drip edge glue line. I'm just gonna flip this towards it here. I didn't do that last time. And this is where that needs to go, right there. And then the mail access door, I don't really need a reference for that. I just need to cut a piece of material that is the right size. So if I simply mark where this needs to go, I just want this to be above this edge and then below the drip flashing. So I'm going to cut this off. width to remove. It's not as straight as I would like it to be. This needs to be straighter. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to mark it on this side so I can see it. I'm in the zone, guys. We're closing in on getting this one done, and then I'll kind of cut out the template and show you other ways of attacking this. And then I need to straighten this side out. It's a little off. Here we go. Do-do-do-do. Shoo-ba-doo. Oh, it's so close. It's a little off. How's that? There we go. Oh, that's a little off too. Blast. Okay. I'm just kind of refining my little cuts here because they're kind of like a little off. I want a little bit of space, but not a lot on the sides. There we go, just so it looks like it kind of can fall open. Man, it keeps being like a little off. I'm gonna have to cut this open again. Or cut this again, not open. Dealing with the tiny measurements when you're dealing with cardboard that pushes and pulls, and the blade has a push out on it, and the thickness, it can be kind of a little cumbersome. So close, yet so far away. Little tiny sharp scissors are very helpful. Might have to get my sandpaper out. There we go. I think. Yep, there we go. Okay. That is much closer to what I wanted to do. I'm going to put a little piece of wire down here to look like a hinge, because the one I'm doing hinges down, right? And I kind of want to do that style because that's like the one I have near my house. Okay. Carefully glue this in place. Glue leak. That's okay. There we go. There we go. So I wanted a little bit of a seam there so that it looked like it would open without impeding or rubbing against the trim. Okay, now I need the drip flashing edge. So this is a piece I cut off of this a minute ago. And then on this one, I'm just going to cut it in half, or cut the little, not in half, but cut a little slice off. And I'm going to cut another slice off. There we go. And then I'm going to round the edges because they always make these things safe for people, like, or relatively safe, like they eliminate sharp edges. So if you go look at a mailbox, there's gonna, these little edges that stick out like this are rounded so that if you fall, you can deflect off of it, or you don't get stabbed by the corner of a piece of metal, right? So I'm just kind of rounding over these corners of this flashing, and then I'm just going to sand it to make it a little bit more round. So you see there, those corners are rounded so that as it's sticking out, if you were to fall and trip into it, like it would just blunt you, it wouldn't like stab you. All these little things are done for our public safety. Okay, so this one I'm gonna get the tweezers out again. Get this over here. And then we're gonna tweeze this mailbox together. Pretty good. It's a little, probably a little bit bigger than it needs to be for the scale, but it's a nice little feature. I'm gonna leave it alone. And I'm gonna actually cut another little lip to go above the mail access door, because there is on these, there's a little lip there that like the mail guy, he can turn the key and then grab the lip, or turn the key and there's like, that's where there's a bit of a roll in the bead of the metal. So I'm going to also make that. Why don't we just add a billion little pieces of detail while we're at it, right? Why not? What's life without a little bit of detail? Gonna just eyeball that cut. Just make sure this is gonna sit where I want it. That's the right width. Yep. So now I'm gonna very carefully slice a piece of this off without curling it. A piece that is tinier than the drip edge. Or the drip flashing. I keep saying drip edge, I mean drip flashing. Okay. And now I'm concerned if I put glue in there, it's going to puddle too much, so I'm going to put it on the edge of this. There we go. Voila. This is how you get into the hyperrealism, guys. Just getting those little edges in there. Little edges and things like that just make all the difference when you're going for realism. Okay, what do I want to do next? I could do the feet. Oh, wait, I was going to do a little piece of hinge down here. Let me get a piece of wire. Hold on. All right. Any piece of solid core wire will do. So something that's not like stranded, because then you can manipulate it, you can straighten it. I'm going to use this coated wire. It doesn't really matter because it's the right thickness to create the idea of a hinge. These are things you can do this on cabinets if you're making miniature cabinets. You can do this on, well, anything that needs to look like it has a hinge. You can do this on a vehicle, like a vehicle door, you know, a tank or something, you know, it kind of works for all of it. I'm just straightening this as much as I can get it straight here. pretty good. Now I'm just going to mark where this needs to be cut. Right there. And I'm just going to use my wire cutting feature on my pliers. And then we're just going to super glue it on. Actually, I can probably just drop this in with my fingers. It's exactly the width of this, so just trying to keep this here. There we go. There's our little hinge detail. I'm going to close my shop door. It just blew open. Hold on a sec. Okay. There, so you see all these little details we're getting in there? It's looking more and more and more and more real. And hinges usually have, they're usually two overlapping pieces with a pin in between them. So they would move like this. So if you wanted to add even more detail, you could also do it with just drawing lines like this. But you could mark where the splits in the rolled metal is. So like these two side ones would maybe scoop under like this, and this would scoop over, and there'd be a pin running through them, and they would move. So there'd be splits there. You could also, if you use wire like I did, you could also take a knife and score a little edge into it. To create an actual seam. And then when I paint that, like you hear it, there's a little edge there. When I paint that, that'll show through in the paint, and there'll be like these little tiny fine seams there. Okay, and I just realized my handle is actually a little bit to the right. So I might just redo that really quick since it's hot glue. Since there's hot glue at the angle already dried that I want or cooled, I'm going to super glue my hot glue piece back on more accurately to the space that I want it. A little bit too much glue there. Okay, let me move this over. It wasn't exactly centered. That's better. There we go. Now it's more in the center. It was a little off. It's still a little off. Yep. Oh, no, we're good. It's only like a 32nd of an inch. I can see it, but it's so minor. Excuse me again. Okay, so everything is... Oop, that actually needs a little bit more glue. I usually check things too, like I just did there. That needs a little more glue. There we go. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things we could do to add more detail. I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave it here. This is where you could add rivets all the way around using nails, or you could drill little holes and put cake sprinkles in them. You could do glue dots. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed as we are here, just for time's sake. Oh, I'm going to put the bottom on. I forgot about that. I'm going to do the bottom, and I'm going to do some feet, and that's where I'm going to leave this one, and we're going to go ahead and put a base coat on. And then while the base coat dries, I will move on to working with the template a little bit more, just kind of showing you how I would approach that if you wanted to go this strictly template method. So bottom. Bottom, 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 bottom. Bottom, 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 bottom. And I'm going to cut a new piece. Alright, so what is my inner dimension on my bottom end up being? 1 and just under 1 and so just under 1 7/8, which is expected. 1 and yeah, 1 and what is that, 7/8? 13/16. So then I'm just going to cut myself a piece here. Again, I'm going to cut myself a straight piece. Is this big enough? Let me see if this is big enough. Nope. Now I gotta use a bigger piece. Okay. Just gonna trim this down here for some raw material. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut off a little chunk here. It's about what I need it to be. What did I say? 1 and 13/16? Or no, what is it? Yeah, 13/16, which is, I'm just going to go with 1 and 7/8 right now. And I'll trim it down with my scissors if I need to. And here, mark. 1 and 13/16. Line this up on my cutting mat. Cut this guy off. Okay. Pretty close. So cut this edge off. There we go. That's pretty dead on there. So now, let's see, do I want to do super glue on this too? Probably. Let me just pull this out of here. Excuse me, that was a burp. I forgot that we have 30 people watching. Thanks for all the likes today, guys. Brutalist, yeah, I get you. You get used to it, but yeah, centimeters, dividing things by 10s and 5s makes way more sense. Like for quick math and like reference, it definitely does. But yeah, somebody decided to be stupid when they invented this math, and here we are. But I grew up with it, so I'm used to it. But if you're not used to it, yeah, it's like, what are these crazy Americans doing? Come on. Fit in there before. Rebellious piece of cardboard. There we go. Okay. See, and now it's sitting up in there a little bit above that line, so it just looks a little bit more custom, more realistic. Just gonna go ahead and fill it in with super glue. And I'm Shoot it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm also going to poke a little hole in this too, just so that the right in the center, so that some of the super glue has a place to, the fumes have a place to go. Actually, I should probably just get my drill and do it with a drill. Hold on. Let me get my drill bit. There we go. There we go. Just going to poke a hole in the bottom so the glue that went inside there can still escape because it's still curing, just so that there's a place for the fumes to go. Because if they don't, believe it or not, fumes can accumulate and it can break open your seams. I've had it happen before. It can happen on all materials too, not just soft materials. It can happen on everything. All right. I am satisfied with that. Oh, look how strong it is. It's a strong little boy. No. Let me... There's a little bit of a trim I need to do, and it's on this front left side. Let's do it this way. Ah, I see what it is. Hey, there we go. Look at that. Now it's good to go. I'm so excited about that. All right. Feet. Let there be feet. And on the seventh day, God said, let there be feet. So these should be probably about 3/8 by 3/8. These feet actually have a unique shape on real ones. Let's see if I can get close. It's going to be hard with this material. Let me sketch it for you really quick. So so the feet on these, so if this is the leg coming down, right? Just imagine this is the leg. It's like the leg. It's a bad isometric drawing, but that's okay. There's your leg. The feet are actually shaped like this. So there we go. So the feet are actually shaped like this. So if you're looking down on them, like here's the corner. This thing is having a hard time focusing. Okay. If here's the corner and you're looking down, it does like this kind of a deal. Sort of like a weird, funky triangle. And then there's a bolt right here. And these edges are all rounded. So that's actually what the footer looks like. It's kind of a unique shape. I'll see if I can do it. I feel like I'm not going to be able to get that tight of a curve at this on this size of a piece, if you know what I mean. I'll try it though. Just gonna kind of just need a reference line. So it's gonna be, oh, that's way too close to the corner. You know what? Let me try this a different way. Let me just cut one out and see if I can just do it by freehanding it. Ugh. Of course. You don't have to make the feet part too if you don't want to. All right, so I'm gonna go like this. And then I'm just going to see if I can cut the curve like this. Like that. And then see if I can just cut, oops, cut the inner right angle. Kind of hard to show you guys, this is so tiny, sorry. This might have worked. So if I do that and then I do that, that's pretty good. So that actually needs to be smaller. Let me just draw on here. Closer to that dimension. Think I left my conscience in the, what's that song Willow sings? I don't know the name of it, but it's a cool line everyone was using on Instagram for their reels. Tight cut, be careful. Think I left my cardboard in the 6th dimension. There we go. That's actually pretty much about how they look. That's pretty okay. Just okay though. Hold on. I can do better. I can rebuild. Sort of like this weird Y shape, I guess. Kind of looks like a Y. This just so they have a nice, it's basically an L shape with an extension on the corner, right? So this is the L, and you have this extension, so there's something to bolt to into the concrete on the ground. Well, let me see. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let me see if I can do 3 more without cutting my fingers open. This is where it's going to be kind of hard. See, that first one was way too big. So let me just trace it with a pencil. See if I can do that. There's uno. Dos. Trace. Oops. So I'm just trying to create a repeating pattern here, so I have cut lines. Again, like I told you guys, I think in sort of drafting terms or manufacturing cutting terms sometimes, because it's how I was trained to use the computy. My mother-in-law calls the computers computies. She calls tablets tablets. She's funny. See that? It's less cuts this way. There you go. Teeth. And where is my reference one? Did I just kick it off the table like an idiot? Probably. Yes. I did. I flung it into oblivion. Oh, the woes. Okay, one more. Whoops. Whoops. Uno más. Por favor. Just lining it up with my previous cuts. All right, I'll trim those up when I glue them on. Probably will be easier once they're glued in place. Okay. Just going to put a little glue on each one and hold them down. Bled into the cardboard too much. Oh my God, come on. Come on, you stink. All right, I'm gonna have to do it this way. You know what? It's a little bit too small. It's soaking up the super glue, and I don't want to glue it to the table, so I'm gonna hot glue these. Adios. All right, here's my sandpaper. I'm just gonna use this to hold it up, and then I'm gonna hot glue these in place. And then I will reinforce them with super glue when I need to. Okay. I'm going to just use the edge of my knife here to get this hot glue out. Oh, right there. I don't want that. And if these turn out like, then I'll just cut them off. We have the technology. Okay. Good enough for me. Okay. Getting there. Getting there. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're watching in the future times, again, what's the best cereal? We must end the debate once and for all. All right. Uno mas. Actually, I might need to cut another one. I cut like too many angles on that one. That's all right. It's okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I just want to trim them up so they look a little bit nicer. Yeah, that's basically what they look like, and then you get the little bolt in the outside that goes down into the concrete. Not bad. There's a thumbnail image right there. Bam! Zoom out a little bit here. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping here. That looks better already. There we go. Better. Better. A little bit more. Almost. Perfectionist in me won't let it go. Of the tendency to hyperfixate on something, and then when it doesn't, you finally give up. You give up on like everything, and then it either looks good and you think it looks bad, or it actually does look bad because you just gave up too soon. I'd rather it be the first one. Okay, there we go. A little bit more, and we're almost there. So you can see what I'm doing here. Almost. Okay. Whoopity-doo! There it is. There's the mailbox. Ta-da! Okay. We're going to do a base coat of spray paint on this. I'm just going to spray it over here on a, scrap piece of cardboard. I'm a mess! Oh, should have flat black. There it is. Clean up my floor. Flat black by Rust-Oleum. Hey, everybody that's here, that's joined. Court Miller, I'm glad you think it's relaxing. I think it is too. I love it. Oh, this hasn't been shaken in a long time. There we go. Make sure we're good to mix, otherwise it will take forever to cure. We don't want that. 52 likes. My goodness, thank you all. Appreciate that. So when we do this base coat, we'll see other little imperfections we may want to touch up before we put a finish coat on. I think we'll have time to put a finish coat on. I think I can completely finish this on the stream here. I think we'll have enough time. It's a pretty warm day here in northern Nevada, so it should dry. I'm going to walk on the other side of the shop and put a fan on it too. So, or actually, well, yeah, I'll put it on the other side of the shop. Okay. So I'm going to spray the bottom really quick. And then I'm going to flip it and do the top. Actually, I'm going to do the underside in here too. Get these undersides really quick. There we go. Oh, a little bit of paint on my fingers, but that's okay. All right. Are you ready? Using spray paint because water-based paint would warp the cardboard. Spray paint is not water-based. It'll have a little bit of a pull on the cardboard because of the elasticity of it as it cures, but nowhere near water-based paint. If you wanted to use water-based paint, I would recommend getting like a sealer, like a lacquer, a spray lacquer, in like a matte finish spray lacquer, and then or a matte finish spray, just any kind of spray acrylic sealer, doesn't have to be lacquer specifically, and spraying 2 or 3 coats like this, like you're painting it, of lacquer or acrylic sealer on your piece, letting it cure overnight. And then if you wanted to go in with brushed on acrylic paints, it would be safe. You could do it then. Actually, so far I'm very happy with this, just the way that it is. That's nice. That's rare. Okay. Let me show you guys what this looks like close up here. Look at that. We just scratch built that in basically less than 2 hours. And that's the base coat. Take that, 3D printer. No, I'm just kidding. Pretty good. And that's going to dry flat. Then I'll be able to see anything I want to sand or trim up. But we did a pretty good job along the way. So I'm just going to walk this. Hi, Ahsoka. I'm going to walk this to the back of the shop really quick. And I'm not going to take you over there because it'd be too hard for me. I just don't want to drop this. I'm going to set this up with a fan on it to help it kind of cure while we mess with the template a little bit. And then hopefully we can go back to this, put a base coat on it, or put a finish coat on it. Hello. Whoops. I'll be back. Okay. Double yes. All right, that should cure up nicely in the next 15 minutes. And then now we can mess with the templates. Oh, piles of your stuff on work tables? Yeah, there's a pile of comic books, pile of boxed action figures, pile of hot toys I'm getting ready to sell. I'm a pile guy. Gotta be all about the piles. By the way, let me know whether you're watching now or in the future times. Would you be interested in watching me custom paint action figures? This is one that I'm almost finished custom painting that I've been working on just like 2 minutes at a time, just so I have one done before I demonstrate it, if I choose to. This was all this color of the hands when I started, and now everything has been painted. It was all done by hand, a little bit of airbrush, mostly by hand though. So this is a Cosmic Legion's Tusk Science Officer that I painted. And you can see like the joints where some of the paint's rubbed off. So if I do action figures, I'm thinking I won't do them on a Sunday. I'm going to keep Sunday streams to dioramas and miniatures. But if I do an action figure stream, I'm going to probably do it on another day. I'm thinking, feel free to throw out any times and days. I'm never going to be able to do Thursday nights. I'm never going to be able to do Saturday mornings. Friday nights are probably a no-go, but I'm thinking like Tuesday late afternoon, early evening. I could probably do this, not very regularly, but I could do maybe a couple times a month. I could do an action figure painting stream like Tuesday, my time, which would be maybe sometime starting the stream sometime between 3 and 5 p.m., just going for about 2 hours. I could probably swing that. So I'm planning on ramping up things throughout this year for the channel to offer more and do more, and which includes more action figure customizing content if you're interested. So let sound off below. I see a few of you have already said yes. Somebody said it in all caps. Thank you for saying that. Again, if you're watching the future times, let me know. Would you want to, and what scale too? Would you want to see 1/18th? Would you want to see 1/12th? Would you want to see 1/6? I'd like to do them all at some point, but I know most of you are in the 1/12th world. So this is a 1/12th. I mean, technically a little bit bigger. These are like 1/10th, 1/11th. These are a little bit taller figures, but they're close enough, right? So as you can see, I put a lot of detail into this paint job. And I'll show you how I did it all too. And it's all cured and painted on there. You can still scrape it off if you try really hard, right? But it's fine. You can pose everything and move things around without fear of rubbing your paint off. So I can walk you through that. There's just a basic. If you want it to be like cured, like factory finish, I can describe that to you. I'm not really set up to do it, but I can also go over that. I like to go over all these things with everybody, how to prep surfaces, at least my way, because I actually do it a little bit differently than other people would. I use a chemical, which makes the surface have a little bit more of a bite on a microscopic scale rather than just sanding and prep and painting a base coat. I use some chemicals. So let me know if you think that would be interesting to have or do. I'd like to actually build some custom little swords for this guy too. I want to actually make some swords, just like we made that mailbox. I want to make some swords for this guy, and if I like them, I might even mold them and cast them so that they're cast pieces. We could even go into molding and casting on those streams if you wanted to. So this is the Science Officer Blacklight Roller Rink Edition is what I've called him. So I'm pretty happy with these colors. I like the wild colors, so I actually would like to do another one with some greens, but in a very different style. That's the one I would actually paint live with you guys. I want to do another one of these, but start fresh and use this as sort of the example piece, but do a different color scheme. Totally different layout of color too. So anyways, thank you. I'm glad you guys like that. Thank you for the yeses. Brenda Craiggeen would like to see assembly of miniature LED lighting. Well, Brenda, I do have that. My most viewed video on my channel is my how to do miniature lighting video. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. That should get you started. When I have a project, excuse me, keep having to clear my throat, that requires lighting, I will try to incorporate it into a live stream so that you can see me do it live. But everything I go over in that video is pretty much what you need. It's what I would just show you physically, and I know some of you need that. I'm a visual learner too. But I will try to incorporate it. I don't have anything coming up in the next probably 6 months that I can think of that requires lighting. I will later, but I don't have anything immediately. So go check out the video and experiment with what I go over in that video to get yourself started. Okay. The template. So if you got these templates, or if you make your own, you could even make your own if you're savvy enough, you know how to do some of this. So what I would do if I was just working straight from a template is this. I would, there's two ways to approach this. You can create a positive template or a negative template, or you can create both. So I'm going to actually cut this template out with a straight edge and my hobby knife. So I'm just going to follow the black line. I'm going to show you a few ways here. All right, because there's other ways that might surprise you that you're probably not thinking of to utilize this template. Again, going with the straight edges here. I'm just going to cut all the edges on this side. Just going to cut all these flat sides here. And I lined these up in the program too so that you could keep cutting, which I just remembered as I'm doing this. I lined these up so you could just cut this one, cut this one, cut this one, cut this one, so that most of them are lined up. The ones that were line upable. Okay, so there's all the vertical cuts. And then I would go around and do all the horizontal cuts. Forgot about this guy. I'm just gonna do this one by freehand here. So there's your positive template of the slot handle. I'm just gonna lay these out here off to the side. This one is done. This one. Then I'm going to trace these curves as best I can with a hobby knife. And these are all lined up here. Oops. Careful. You might stagger your knife if you do it at a weird angle. Okay, mail access door. Almost there. See how quick this goes though, right? You've got all your shapes without any waiting. Cut these edges. All right, and now I'm going to cut the curves in these other short straight lines here. You can do this all with scissors if you're comfortable with scissors. I know my mom is. My mom's very good at just holding a piece of paper and cutting all the lines, even if they're curved or straight. I'm not anymore. I probably would have been a long time ago, but I got so used to doing things this way because I think linearly that I just can't do it any other way now. Linear visual. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm making up terms again. I think you probably know what I'm getting at, though. My brain maps things out like this. Okay, there's that one. There's that one. I need an applause button. Yay! All right. I'm holding the paper too after I cut back here so that it doesn't slip. My knife doesn't drag it. There's that guy. There's that guy. Oops. So there's the template all pulled out. So if this is where you're going to see what I mean by positive and negative template. So there's two ways to go this way. I'm going to show you a third way in a minute, which is probably my preferred way if you're more of a craft person and not like a fine miniature hobbyist. It'd be a good way to get you started. This also works well. So here's your positive template. You could take these and you could literally just do sort of a one-to-one here where you take each piece and then just simply trace it onto your cardboard. Lay it out however it fits best to you, right? So you can just lay this onto your cardboard and trace it out. Takes a little finesse. I'm kind of rushing it for demonstration purposes, but you understand what I'm doing. Okay, and there is your piece. And then you can cut that out however you want, right? And then you can stack these for ease of use. You know, you can stack these together against each other like that. Do like I did where I made strips for the longest pieces. You can cut out all your pieces like this. And then this is the one where you would cut this and you would glue this along the seam here, like I said. And then you would end up with an open seam here, and then you would glue this one. Or then you would take this one and you would fit it. You would cut a piece of the material and fit it, because what's going to happen again, like I said, once you take material like this and you curve it, right? If I measure this end to end right now, it'll have a certain measurement. If I curve it around something, it's kind of, the material is compressing and expanding, compressing on the inside and expanding on the outside. So the inside dimension is going to be smaller than my flat dimension, and the outside dimension is going to be longer by a little bit. And that's what I mean. And the thicker that you go, the more of a difference you'll get. That's why I split this. You cut two different pieces. You glue this one on, and then you fit this one and cut this one, or you glue this one on and fit this one and cut this one so that they seam correctly in the back. Right? That's what I was talking about. Or, like I said, you could just use the method where you cut one long piece that's too long, glue it around and slice it off, snip, snip, like I just demonstrated with the scratch build method, right? So that's your positive template. This is your negative template. You could also do the same thing. I'm just going to slide this all out of the way. You do the same thing with a negative template. So you have this, you do your negative template. Again, and one of these methods may work or not work for you. You just do what makes sense to you. Here's your negative template. You can, actually what I would do is I would tape this down. I don't know if I have any Scotch tape around. Masking tape. So I'll use some frog tape, but I would tape the edges. I'd probably just use Scotch tape if I was doing paper to cardboard like this. Make sure that it stays nice and flat too, and doesn't like ripple up when you tape it down, because then you won't get good lines. All right, and then tape it down like that, and then just trace your negative. Like a stencil. I mean, it literally is a stencil, I guess. But then you can trace all your pieces like this. And obviously, this is the same idea as a Cricut cutter. If you have a Cricut cutting machine, you could put you should be able to, if you know how to use it and you're savvy, you should be able to load this in there and select the lines you want it to cut and have it do all this cutting for you. You're still going to have to do trimming to fit things up against and abut things, like I've said many times, but you can have your Cricut do all the pre-cutting for you, and then you can save yourself all that time if you have a Cricut. So there you go with all of your baseline cuttings, and then you could get the ruler out, do all the straight cuts if you want. See, it didn't really take much time when I did it, and if I was not talking and moving a little quicker, I could do that that way. So if any of you want to scan, or well, this QR code too, if you buy this QR code leads you right back to this stream. I linked this stream to this to this channel, excuse me. But there's a description. We're on, here you are. I predict the future, Art in Real Time, episode number 48. That's this stream. So it directs people to come to this stream to get all the direction that they need. In case you forget, there's a QR, the code that takes you to my channel. And then, of course, you have enough here to create at least one mailbox, right? So you've got a spare collection time to cut out, a spare side logo, 2 spare mail slot logos, and a spare attention label. Yeah, Whipstorm, you're getting ahead of me, buddy. So, so this is where you can lay this all out, and You can, sorry, what am I saying? This is where you can test everything. So you can do a test cut until you're confident. So you can cut out your label here. So again, I'm showing you all these methods so that you have all these ideas and all these tools in your toolbox. I'm going to show you my preferred method, which somebody just got ahead of me on in a sec. But that's okay, though. I appreciate you. We're all thinking on the same wavelength here. So you can cut these out. These are pretty high quality printed. You can't see this super micro text down here, but I don't think there's a lot of printers that could get that for us anyways. It'd be a little bit too tight. The printers I'd want to use, maybe you have one that can do it. Here's your mail slot handle. For the handle, this goes right below the handle. But these are printed fine enough for you to glue down. I recommend, if you're going to glue these down, I would flip these over, spray glue the backside, and then press them down. Or super glue, very carefully done, like very lightly. If you do white glue, you might get a lot of, warping, but if you're careful with it, or even a glue stick, well, maybe not a glue stick, maybe a glue stick with added white glue. But just be careful, do a test piece if you're not sure, because this is a paper label, which works fine. You just got to make sure you don't put anything that's too wet, put it on anything that's too wet, or put wet glue that's too wet on it. Otherwise, you'll get ink bleed, or you'll get glue bleed through, and it won't look right. So this is basically, you need 2 of these, 1 for each side. This is this collection times piece. This is where I'll go right there, right? This is my previous one. Should be all scaled correctly here. Like this would go right on the faceplate right there. These to go right on the sides. I put the little ghosted logos here on the templates for you. So here is the ghosted logo, and you would glue that there as a reference. Here's your ghosted logo where you would glue that as a reference, right there. So that is the purpose of this. You have enough here to make one. If you do the printed file or the printable file, you can print as many as you want. I would recommend a high quality inkjet or a high quality laser printer. I like laser printers because they can print a little bit sharper lines with the tiny text. I think inkjet printers, you just have to have a very high quality one. I also hate inkjet printers because they're like scams. They drive me insane. I got away from them years ago, but you need them for certain types of things. So, with crafting. So, unfortunately, I can't totally avoid them. But the third method, especially if you're gluing to cardboard, or if you're cutting out cardboard, excuse me, the third method, and again, this is the kit you can order from me that is different than what I just showed you. If you order a kit from me, I'll send you one template like this without the logos up here, and what will amount to 2 complete sets with an extra of each one. So you can, again, do a test cut on high quality gloss paper. So when you cut this out, and this is a little bit going to be less finicky with glues. Still don't use water-based glue if you can avoid it, but it'll be less finicky. You know, you can use the Styro glue or the Bob Smith Industries EPS glue. You can use a spray glue, which I would recommend. Flip those over, pin them to a piece of cardboard, spray them with spray glue, flip them over and place them with tweezers. You'll have a nice, flush, clean looking fit. And then, so if you order this from me, I'll send you this and this. You can order as many as you want. If you're confident in your printer and your printer's ability to print clean, you can get the printable file, or you can just scratch build everything like I just did. Every method is available. Who can take this diaper? I don't mind at all. Who can clean me up before the big policeman fall? The mailman. That's not how the song goes. Okay, so the third method that I like the most, which somebody spoiled, is this. Cut your piece of cardboard 8.5 inches by 11, size of your paper. All right, and then do this. Get yourself some spray glue, either Super 77, like somebody mentioned, or Gorilla Glue adhesive heavy duty. And I'm going to spray this off to the side here. Let me show you what I'm doing. Spray this with a layer of glue on the back side. So the reason that this can be troublesome is it can darken the labels a little, but it will still work for the template cutting out. So spray it with spray glue like that. You're gonna let it, the way this stuff works is you need to let it dry a little bit, get tacky. Smells like lung cancer. Okay. So I'm just gonna shake this up and down, let it get a little tacky here. I did it on the piece, but normally I would do it on another piece of cardboard and then lay it down. But I'm in a rush, so I would just start from the center or from a corner, depending on if your piece is cut to the exact same size. I guess you don't have to cut it 8.5 by 11. And then just press it down. So what you might want to do if you're going to do this method is cut off the color labels first, because you can see it changed the tone of the color a little bit. The glue on the backside darkened it a little bit, made it a little speckly. So what I would do is actually, sorry, I should have done that. Cut these out first and let them aside, and then glue this down. And then just set this aside for like an hour. And then see that, like that's now flexing with the cardboard. Now you can take your scissors and just follow the template, or your knife and follow the template, and you've got them cut out that way without a cricket. So you kind of turn yourself into a cricket. So that is the method that I would probably do if I if I didn't have a reason to do this method. But the reason I showed you all three is because I feel like you'll probably need to utilize parts of all three to do whatever you're comfortable with. We're all going to come from different angles, have different tools, have different workspaces, different budgets. So hopefully this gives you the inspiration you need or the ideas you need to do your own. But you see, once this is glued down, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting. But once that's glued down, you can literally just cut it like it's cardboard, because all you did was add a layer of paper, right? Voila. Have a good night, Craftinator. Whipstorm, I appreciate you being on the same page as me, by the way. Whipstorm's got the good ideas. So those are the ways I would approach this. Now let's finish painting and labeling my piece. I'm going to use my high quality glossy labels. I'm going to set this aside. My demonstration piece. Let me go check on that. It should be good. Momento. Okay, it's not fully cured, but it's very close. So we can proceed. It should still behave okay. So here it is, folks. So you see the little bend I put in the cardboard? It's visible at the end, so you want to try to avoid doing that. As the paint dried, it peeled away a little bit from these edges, so there's a little bit of a visible edge there. There's the bottom. This turned out pretty good. There's a little bit of fraying right here from my cut, but this turned out pretty good. All the little work I did along the way helped. There's a little bit of a drip right there. I'm just kind of scraping it before it dries. A little bit of a paint drip. So you can see I'm putting fingerprints in it as I touch it. That means it's not fully cured, but it's getting there. If I were to leave this there overnight, it would be super, super, super hard. But we can go ahead and spray this the blue. I think I have a dark blue. Do I even have a dark blue? I actually never even thought about that. I should somewhere. I think I do, yeah. Or I have a rich blue, not a dark blue, but I have a rich blue. Yeah, yeah, you're right, Whipstorm. Okay, yes, I do. Not a lot left. So this is like a really, really rich, brilliant blue. So you can pick one that you like. I see them painted in brilliant blue. I see them painted in sort of a navy blue. This will work for now. To demonstrate. Something just fell outside. Hold on, I'm going to look outside really quick. It's the aluminum scrappers. They're digging through my neighbor's trash. Okay, that's fine. This is a very loud noise. Usually not that loud. Okay. Kind of going in lines just to kind of have an even coat. The base coat I wasn't super worried about it, but just I'm kind of trying to keep it consistent. If I went side to side or vertical, I'm tending to go vertical because the longest dimension is along that that delineation, the vertical path. So I'm following that with my paint just to get the most coverage in each swipe. And then up here, I'm just gonna kind of fill in. Just see if there's anything I missed. Okay, pretty happy with that. Looks really good. Actually, that's a good color. Pretty glossy right now. I mean, it's going to be still glossy when it dries, but that I'm not going to be able to put, because it's a gloss paint, I'm not going to be able to put the stickers on them tonight. It's going to need to probably cure overnight. But I'll put the stickers on it and I will post an image in the, not the stickers, but the labels, excuse me. You can print those out as stickers if you wanted to. I've done that in the past, but I find stickers sometimes don't stick as well to paint as you'd hoped. So I prefer gluing printed labels rather than stickering them now. But I'm going to let this cure overnight and then I will glue on the labels after I cut them out, but I just demonstrated that. And I'll share it in the community chat. And I will share what this finished product looks like at the beginning of the next live stream. So everybody can see it. And if there's anything, and maybe we can weather it together. I won't weather it, I'll tell you that. Because normally I would maybe do a couple of scrapes and dings near the bottom where like people might kick it and do a little bit of a couple of rust spots and maybe a wash, maybe not, depending if you want it to look fresh and new. I might want to keep a fresh and new look, but with some little weathering down at the bottom. But we'll put the labels on. I'll put the labels on. And then maybe we can do some weathering, or I'll leave a label off so I can do one with you guys at the beginning of the next live stream, because there's really only probably 30 minutes worth of work left, but I got to wait for the paint to dry. So I don't want to take up a whole stream with 30 minutes worth of work. I'd like to move on to something new, but we can finish this together. So the blue paint I used Rust-Oleum Brilliant Blue Gloss. Honestly, if I went to Home Depot to pick one, I'd probably pick one shade darker than this. To be honest with you, I'd go one shade darker than this. This looks nice though. So again, this is for a bright blue one, but I've seen them in darker blue, and I modeled this in my head after a slightly darker blue one. But this looks great. This I've seen them in this color too. Just the one by my house is a little darker than this. So I think, at least, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is correct. If it looks good to you, that's all that matters. Oh, I'm also going to put a little key slot on the front. I'm just going to glue like a little silver disc there. That's all I'm going to do. So maybe I do have enough for another stream. I don't know. If I do, you'll find out when I list the stream. If not, whatever. So hold on one sec, guys. Yo. So this is what we did together today. So a little over 3 hours we've been going here, but again, if you did this on your own without talking, just had some music on, hour and 30 minutes to get to this point, I think. If you're, once you're competent with the materials and the process, hour and 30 minutes, 2 hours max, And then once you let the paint cure, you got another 20, 30 minutes worth of work. So you got a good 3 hours worth of work into each one of these. If you separate them, if you do a batch, maybe you got 2 hours worth of work per mailbox. But I'm pretty happy with that as far as a scratch-built mailbox. Again, you can add more detail if you want. If you want to add rivets, nails, and dots, glue dots, whatever you want to do it. If you want to push it farther, I just thought this would be nice, and I think it looks really nice the way it is. I like how clean it looks. I will probably add some little bolts at the bottom. I'll probably just cut off the tops of some of my silver round head finishing nails and just glue them down. Or maybe I'll do a white glue dot or a silver paint dot, something just to indicate that there's a bolt that went down into the concrete. And I think I'm going to be pretty happy with that, to be honest. This turned out good. It turned out cleaner, honestly, than I thought it was going to turn out, because I knew I was going to be doing this in a little bit of a rush with talking, so I thought it was going to be a little rougher looking, just because of the timing and doing it live, but it actually turned out way better than I thought. So Night Wolf, I'm glad you like it. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the channel members who chimed in and who watched, and thank you to the channel members for being here. I share a lot of these things ahead of time. They got a discount code for both of those templates that I offer in case they wanted to get some. They could get them really, really cheap, and they deserve it for being members. So they have a discount code as my thank you to them, and they know beforehand. I share things usually. I try to share them as early as I possibly can, like a week, 2 weeks in advance. But they knew this was coming probably about a week, 10 days ago, and they knew what we were going to be doing, and they were aware of the templates before I even shared them. So I try to keep them abreast of everything as my thank you. And then when I have members only streams, I'll do that, and I try to make some videos as often as I can for the workshop masters that are just for them as a thank you, which there are several up now. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, that's kind of what's available to you, as well as emojis you can use in the live chat. So I got to make a few more of those too. But thanks for being here, guys. Thank you for all the likes. And if you have any questions in the future times, please put them below. Tell me what your favorite cereal is, and I will figure out what we want to do on the next stream. If we want to do more of just this, or if I want to do a new thing or start a new diorama, tell me what you think in the comments below. Be kind to each other. The world's getting crazier. It's about to get really crazy, so slow your roll, be patient. Everyone's living a life you haven't lived, and just try to understand everyone rather than attack. So we'll see you later. Thanks, Mario Natsu Super.